Chapter 1046. Yin Jihong's brows furrowed slightly. Under the probing gazes of his relatives, he didn't know what to say. Actually, it's nothing much. There are so many people in a drama, so there's bound to be a few weirdos. It's fine as long as it's settled. Luo Baoging knew the twists and turns in this matter. He also knew that it wasn't good to discuss this topic in front of the people involved, so he ended the topic and gave Grandpa Li a look. Grandpa Li instantly understood and pulled back his wife, who was about to continue asking. He smiled faintly and said, "Old Luo is right. How can everything go smoothly at work? It's fine as long as it's settled. Today we're here to thank Miss Su and confirm Nan Nan's treatment with Miss Su. Business is more important." Since Grandpa Li had said so, Grandma Li naturally couldn't say anything. When Yin Jihong heard Luo Baoging's vague derogatory evaluation, he subconsciously wanted to refute Wen Jingping. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, he unexpectedly met Su Yiyen's gaze. His mind went blank again. He didn't know why, but the words that were about to come out of his mouth couldn't come out. Su Yiyen saw Yin Jihong's conflicted and confused expression. She only felt that it was even more out of place. She looked at Yin Jihong with a more probing gaze. "System, is there any way to investigate the reason why Yin Jihong's attitude towards Wen Jingping was different? Isn't Wen Jingping's female lead halo already very weak? How can it still make these people lose their intelligence? Is there something that you and I don't know about? Does the host suspect that Wen Jingping used some unspeakable methods on Yin Jihong?" Su Yiyen was silent for a moment, then probed, "Can you find out? The host can scan the past experience and memory of a potential threat to confirm whether or not he has been corrupted by the female lead halo." Su Yiyen was shocked. The system actually had such a function. She thought that the system's skill points were all in Chinese medicine. Before she could finish being happy, she heard the system add another sentence. "As long as the host pays the corresponding favorability points." She knew that this lousy system wasn't easy to talk to. How much? 1 million favorability points. Su Yiyen was stunned for a moment. He opened his mouth, but before he could react to this inexplicably huge number, he heard the system faintly spit out 2 more words. "Once? When did you learn to speak so slowly? The system won't breathe, thank you. Su Yiyen. I'm actually speechless, so angry. 1 million favorable impression points each time? Are you trying to rob me?" Previously, the one-time use good luck halo that she exchanged for only cost 1,000 favorability points. Although it was a little expensive to upgrade it, the seeds that she unlocked were basically worth a few thousand each. Even if it was more expensive, it wouldn't be more than a few tens of thousands. He had only scanned it once and it actually cost 1 million. Su Yiyen felt that he had the word sucker hanging over his head, and that he could be ripped off at any time. "I suspect that you're raising the price on the spot. I want to lodge a complaint." The system has yet to activate the complaint function. The choice is in your hands. If you don't accept this price, you can also choose not to make the exchange. The hidden meaning was, take it or leave it, there's no way to lower the price. Hearing the system's stiff reply, Su Yiyen glanced at the remaining favorability points. She gritted her teeth and made the decision, exchange. Although with Su Yiyen's current situation, 1 million favorability points could actually be earned by opening another live broadcast. But when she heard the system's notification, Su Yiyen couldn't help but feel a little heartache. She felt that she had been cheated. Chapter 1047. The only thing that could comfort her was that this one-time scan function was worth the money. After deducting all the affection points, the system dutifully turned on the virtual camera and scanned Yin Jihong from top to bottom, inside and out. With this sweep, he really did manage to find some things. Su Yiyen raised her eyebrows. "What's wrong? What did you find?" "This person has traces of using a system item." "System item?" Su Yiyen was startled and her expression changed greatly. "You mean there are traces of using a system item on his body? Someone gave it to him? Wen Jingping?" If that was the case, then everything made sense. Before this, Yin Jihong's attitude towards Wen Jingping was neither hot nor cold, even somewhat repulsive. However, after her scandal, not only did Yin Jihong's impression of her not worsen, he even protected her under his wings. This kind of behavior was undoubtedly contrary to his personality. However, if he had the support of a system item, then it was understandable. Even someone as calm as Su Yiyen could not help but change her expression when she realized this. "So, Wen Jingping's body is very likely to have a system similar to yours?" "From a certain point of view, that is correct. However, there should be some differences." Differences? How are they different? Perhaps they both need to complete missions to level up. The system in the hands of the world's female lead can directly exchange for a tool to manipulate people's hearts. This system can only provide a certain amount of technical assistance to the host. In other words, Wen Jingping's system could earn the same amount of affection points as Su Yiyan's system by completing missions. Then she could use these affection points to exchange for a tool to manipulate people's hearts. She could manipulate the target to have a favorable impression of her and use them to complete more missions in exchange for more tools. Should I say, as expected of the world's female lead? The system was also different from other people's. This thing could be a virtuous cycle. She did not need to do anything but wait for the excellent supporting male leads to automatically come to her door and beg to give her resources. Realizing this, Su Yiyan was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. She was even more resentful of the system's actions just now. From what you said, the system in her body seems to be even more advanced. The system was silent for a few seconds before faintly replying. System 001 is currently the most advanced system. Host, please do not attack the system personally. Otherwise, the system will take measures to defend itself and cut off part of the security system's technical support in the host's home. Su Yiyan? This is a threat. If Su Yiyan could be threatened by the system's words, then she would not be Su Yiyan. Listening to the system's exasperated rebuttal, the frustration from the massive hemorrhage had dissipated a little. Su Yiyan continued to provoke the system's rage points in a good mood. So, you're saying you're the system to Wen Jingping, to the system. That is. Since that's the case, you should be able to swallow her system, right? The system choked. It did not expect Su Yiyan to have such thoughts about the system that suddenly appeared in Wen Jingping's body. You have to see it with your own eyes to be sure. When I heard you say it in such a dignified manner, I thought it wouldn't be difficult for you. System? Don't think I can't tell that you're mocking me. Chapter 1048. The system was enraged by Su Yiyan's words and shut up on the spot. Su Yiyan knew when to stop. She quickly turned her attention back to Wen Jingping. However, this is really strange. Since Wen Jingping has such a good thing on her, how could she have played such a good set of cards to such a state today? Although Su Yiyan was partly responsible for her current predicament, she was not completely innocent. However, if one were to dig deeper, they would find that most of what Su Yiyan did was just fighting back. She had fallen into this awkward situation largely because of herself. Or is it that her item is only effective on people who have come into contact with it in real life? It has no effect on people who have not come into contact with it on the internet? Hearing Su Yiyan's words, the system tried to hold back, but in the end it could not hold back. If the world's female lead has traces of the system on her body, the system will be able to find out if she is in a photo with the host. Su Yiyan was slightly stunned. You mean when I met Wen Jingping before, you did not notice that she had another system on her body? Could it be that her system is more advanced than yours, so much so that even you could not detect it? Impossible. The system's angry rebuttal successfully amused Su Yiyan. Since that is not the reason, there is only one possibility left. Wen Jingping's system only appeared after the last time they met. Su Yiyan was not sure about the exact time, but judging from the attitude of the men around Wen Jingping, it must have happened before she met Ding Jueisi, or even before that. Miss Su? Miss Su? Su Yiyan was deep in thought because of the sudden discovery of a big secret. Her dazed expression was inevitably noticed by the Li family members who had been paying attention to her. Nothing. Su Yiyan seemed to have woken up from a dream. She did not continue to ask the system about the same system and focused on Li and Nam. Has the surgery time been set? Yes, it will be in a week. Then during this period of time, use this ointment to fade away the scars except for the face. As for the rest, we'll wait until you're done with the surgery and see how well you're recovering. Then we'll see if there's a need to adjust the dosage of the medicine. The Li family had come here today just to hear Su Yiyan's words. Now that they had heard it, their hearts were much more at ease. They had originally come to express their gratitude, but seeing that it was almost time for dinner, they didn't want to disturb them any further. In addition, many of them had their own matters to attend to, so they didn't stay in the family hall for long. Estimating that it was about time, they got up and bid farewell. Su Yiyan was busy trying to figure out what was going on with the system, so she didn't ask them to stay. Naturally, she didn't know that after they left the family hua, Luo Baoging and Song Linghua were invited into Grandpa Li and Grandma Li's car. The two juniors who had accompanied them were chased to another car. Old Luo, What did you tell Miss Sue about Ji Hong's production team? Why did I see that you guys didn't look too good at the time? Luo Baoging glanced at his old friend. After thinking for a while, he said, actually, it's not a big deal. Little Sue was engaged to family Hua before she got married. You guys should have heard about this, right? I know about this. Grandma Li immediately took over the conversation. Not many people knew about the engagement between Su Yiyan and Hua Xiaofeng. However, after the engagement was called off, it caused such a huge commotion. It even involved the cliché plot of a mistress getting married. As a result, their verbal engagement became the laughingstock of many people in high society. Chapter 1049. Not only that, but Su Yiyan had married Hua Xiaofeng's uncle at lightning speed, which had shocked many onlookers. His ex-fiancée had suddenly become his aunt. Perhaps only the person involved would know how bitter it felt. Many people did not dare to talk about it openly, but behind their backs they shared it as a joke with their friends. Grandma Li had heard about it from an old friend of hers. Mother Li also knew about it. When she heard Luo Baoging suddenly mention it, her heart could not help but skip a beat. Uncle Luo, why did you suddenly mention this? Could it be that the incident with Ji Hong's production team has something to do with this? As soon as she said this, the few people in the car all focused their attention on Luo Baoging. There is indeed something to do with it. There is an actress in his drama, the one that her fiancé found, mistress? Yes. The Li family's faces changed slightly. How could it be so coincidental? Isn't it just so coincidental? Moreover, after that girl joined the production team, she caused some trouble. What happened? She got involved with a married male actor in the production team. The Li family's members looked at each other and frowned at the same time. If the Li family wanted to know about this, they would naturally investigate it. Luo Baoging did not dwell on this topic. As a friend, he kindly reminded them. This girl seems to especially like to pester rich and powerful men who can help her work. Previously, we did not know that Ji Hong was in the same production team as her. Now that we know, you should take care of the child. Don't let the child take the wrong path and be deceived. Luo Baoging's words were very straightforward. He was a master who liked to hook up with potential stocks everywhere. He did not need to say how outstanding the Li family was. Perhaps they had already been targeted. The elders of the Li family were all shrewd people. This was not the first time something like this had happened. With Ji Hong's background, he had the looks, the connections, and the family background. Not to mention in the entertainment industry, even in those rich and powerful circles, he would be in high demand. Since his debut, there had been a lot of girls who had designs on him. It was just that these people simply couldn't enter his eyes. The Li family believed in their junior self-control and didn't think that Ji Hong would be bewitched by such a girl. But now the person who reminded them was Luo Baoging, and this matter involved Su Yiyan, who was helping Li Nam with his treatment. They had no choice but to take it seriously. It was actually very easy to find out about Ji Hong's situation on set. Ji Hong had an assistant who followed him around 24/7. There was probably no one who knew more about Ji Hong's situation than him. However, before contacting the assistant, the Li family and the Yin family, who had received the news indirectly, contacted Ji Hong's manager first. Coincidentally, Ji Hong's manager had been busy with another artist under his management. He knew that no one in the industry dared to provoke Ji Hong. He wasn't someone who liked to cause trouble, so he didn't ask much after he sent Ji Hong to the set. He had always been very confident in Ji Hong. Not long ago, Ji Hong's assistant felt that Ji Hong's condition was not right. Only then did he muster up the courage to contact Ji Hong's manager and explain Ji Hong's strange behavior during this period of time. Chapter 1050. Ji Hong's manager didn't think much of it at first, until he heard the second half. After the scandal between Wen Jingping and Ding Jueisi, not only did Ji Hong get closer to her, he even planned to act as a middleman to help Wen Jingping connect with other big shots. The reason why the Yin family chose this manager was that he was quick-witted and quick-witted. He knew how to judge the situation. Hearing his assistant say this, he broke out in cold sweat. Not to mention whether Ji Hong was really possessed or not, this matter was definitely related to him. The Yin family's upbringing was famous for being strict. The children they raised were all upright and couldn't tolerate anything. Ji Hong wasn't possessed, but he suddenly had feelings for a spoiled girl. As his manager, he didn't realize it after so long. It was a dereliction of duty. Ji Hong was possessed and was charmed by such a girl. As his manager, he was kept in the dark and couldn't guard against it. It was also a dereliction of duty, Just as the manager was having a headache and didn't know how to deal with this matter, the Een family called before he could think of a solution. Mr. Een? The manager picked up the phone guiltily. He didn't have much confidence. The Een family didn't waste time with him and directly stated their purpose. The manager's heart trembled and he almost threw his phone away in shock. After spending a few seconds to figure out that this matter couldn't be hidden anymore, the manager gritted his teeth and told the Een family all the things that his assistant reported. When the Een family heard that their youngest son was not only close to a spoiled vixen, but he was also infatuated with this vixen and wanted to use their family's connections to help her get connections and find resources, it was incredible. Een Jihong's father, the current head of the Een family, Een Huifeng, first scolded Een Jihong's manager. Then he carefully asked about Wen Jingping's situation on the set. He found out that this woman was just a female lead and that the scenes related to her had long been finished. Logically speaking, she should have been kicked out of the set a long time ago after causing such a scandal with the male actor in the same set. However, the truth was that Wen Jingping had shamelessly stayed behind in the name of an exchange study. Moreover, Een Jihong had helped her with this. When Father Een heard about this, he was so angry that he almost fainted on the spot. As soon as he hung up the phone, he rushed to Een Jihong's workplace and took his stupid son away. It was rare for him to severely reprimand him. He also ordered Een Jihong to immediately break off his relationship with Wen Jingping and never meet this woman again. This was the first time Een Jihong's father had scolded his child, and it was also the first time Een Jihong had been scolded. Mr. Een originally thought that his scolding would wake his son up, but he didn't expect his son, who had always been well-behaved and obedient, to talk back to him after hearing a few words. He even had a big fight with him. When Su Yiyin found out about this, Een Jihong had already been locked up by the Een family. It was said that because of him, the Een family had secretly found a few masters to exorcise him. They felt that his soul had been seduced by a vixen and he had been possessed. After Su Yiyin asked someone to inquire about the whole story, he was both embarrassed and puzzled. Was Een Jihong so wild at home? When they met previously, Su Yiyin could feel the other party's coldness towards him, as well as his occasional absent-mindedness. However, there wasn't much of a conflict in the end. He originally thought that he would be a calm and patient guy, but he didn't expect, as if reading Su Yiyin's mind, the system took the initiative to go online and clear up Su Yiyin's worries and doubts. Een Jihong didn't have a conflict with the host previously because the host was there. Chapter 1051. Su Yiyin was stunned for a few seconds before she realized what it meant. She frowned and said, "Are you saying that he's calmer because I'm around and didn't get into a conflict with anyone?" "You can say that." "No, what does this have to do with me?" Could it be that she was a tool to keep Een Jihong awake? Een Jihong's abnormality originated from the world's female lead. The host has stolen the halo of the world's female lead. Een Jihong's influence will be suppressed in front of the host, and he will gain temporary lucidity. I see. No wonder Een Jihong's behavior was so strange that day. She could faintly feel his hostility towards her, but he seemed to be very restrained. He would also be in a trance from time to time. In addition, the skill item used by the world's female lead is not of a high level. She needs to be in contact with the target for a long time and strengthen it again and again to make him have a better impression of her. Su Yiyin narrowed her eyes and immediately grasped the main point of the system's words. In other words, the effect of her item is not permanent, and it's not even long-term. As long as Een Jihong is not in contact with her for a short period of time, he will return to normal and no longer be affected by the item? Logically speaking, that's the case. That's interesting. Su Yiyin's lips curled up slightly, and a trace of interest flashed through her eyes. Xia Junxing had mentioned to her before that Een Jihong's initial attitude towards Wen Jingping was not good, and Wen Jingping had created such a big scandal with the male actor in the crew during filming. If it was Een Jihong's original temperament, he should have hated her. He should have avoided her like the plague and despised her even if he looked at her more than once. However, under inexplicable circumstances, he actually had a good impression of her, and even did a lot of stupid things for her that were enough to make him ashamed to death. When Een Jihong completely sobered up and recalled these things, she wondered if he would be angry and take his anger out on Wen Jingping, the main culprit. If that was the case, there would be a good show to watch. As Su Yiyin expected, Een Jihong was quite unconvinced when he was first locked up. Mrs. Een knew about what had happened to Wen Jingping. Although she didn't agree with what her son had done, her heart softened when she saw that the father and son had quarreled so fiercely. She took the initiative to go to her son's room. She wanted to be the peacemaker and persuade her son to mend his ways and stop being angry with his father. In the end, it would have been better if Wen Jingping had not been mentioned. The moment she did, Yin Jihong instantly lost control of his emotions. After having a conflict with his father, he had a conflict with his mother. Father Yin was already angry because of his son's late rebellion. When he found out that his son had actually yelled at his wife, he was even angrier. If it weren't for Mama Yin stopping her, she would have rolled up her sleeves and engaged in domestic violence. Because of this small episode, Yin Jihong's imprisonment was naturally extended indefinitely. However, he didn't sit still and wait for his death. Ever since the day he had a conflict with his parents, he had been on a hunger strike. When Papa Yin found out about this, he got even angrier. He hadn't even done anything to him yet, but he was already on a hunger strike. Did this little brat feel wronged? If you want to go on a hunger strike, then so be it. Let's see who can outlast the other. It had to be said that the temperaments of the father and son were very similar. They were equally stubborn, and neither was willing to give in first. Only Mama Yin suffered. On one hand, she felt sorry for her son, but on the other hand, she knew that her husband wasn't wrong. She was in a dilemma and secretly cried countless times. Fortunately, this situation didn't last too long. On the third day after being locked up, Yin Jihong suddenly seemed to have been enlightened and stopped his hunger strike. Chapter 1052. Mrs. Yin was overjoyed. She thought that her son had thought things through and was no longer going against his father. However, she realized that although her son had eaten, he was in a trance and didn't respond to any of her questions. It was as if he had lost his mind. Yin Jihong's stupor frightened the Yin family. They invited one doctor after another. After the examination, they all said that everything was normal. He was healthy and eating well. However, Yin Jihong's state was obviously not right. Just as the Yin family was considering whether to invite the doctor who had recently treated their in-law's niece and was said to be very good, Yin Jihong suddenly woke up. "Dad, Mom, what's wrong with me?" Yin Jihong, who hadn't seen Wen Jingping for nearly half a month or had any physical contact with her, only felt that his mind was in a mess. He seemed to have forgotten something, but also seemed to have forgotten nothing. He was in a daze and couldn't tell what was real and what was not. "You don't remember?" Mrs. Yin rushed to her son's bedside as soon as she heard the noise. Hearing this, she subconsciously turned to look at her husband with confusion in her eyes. "Remember what?" Yin Jihong held his head and looked around. For a moment he still didn't understand the situation. Mrs. Yin was afraid that she would agitate him, so she asked tentatively, "Did you forget what happened recently? Did you forget why you were at home?" "At home?" These two short words seemed to have turned on a certain switch. Everything that had happened recently was stuffed into Yin Jihong's mind. Yin Jihong's expression changed from the initial confusion and discomfort to gloomy and livid. Mrs. Yin's heart skipped a beat when she saw the sudden change in her son's expression. "Jihong, are you okay?" "Mom, I'm fine." Yin Jihong thought of what he had done recently and felt a little more apologetic toward his parents. "I just suddenly woke up and remembered what happened recently. It's as if I've been possessed." "Possessed?" The couple was shocked. "Yes. I really don't like Wen Jingping at all. You could even say that I hate her. Especially after she had such a scandal with a married woman in the crew." The statement released by Hai-Yi Entertainment couldn't even fool those die-hard fans, let alone those in the industry. Everyone knew what was going on in their hearts. However, they were still in the same production team, so it was not good to talk about others behind their backs. Thus, they maintained a harmonious appearance. However, under this harmonious atmosphere, how many people really looked up to these two people? Yin Jihong was a person who could not tolerate sand in his eyes. He vaguely remembered that when he first heard about this matter, he was quite sympathetic to Ding Juexi's first wife. He was extremely disgusted by this cheating scumbag and his mistress. Who would have thought that after only a few days, he would inexplicably have a good impression of Wen Jingping as if he was possessed? His reason clearly told him to stay away from this woman, but there was a voice that kept echoing in his mind, asking him to help her, pamper her, and love her. Now that he thought about it, Yin Jihong felt his hair stand on end. It was as if his body had suddenly been controlled by someone else. It was simply terrifying. Mrs. Yin firmly believed her son's words. She boasted that she knew her son's temperament very well. Previously, she was busy dealing with the conflict between father and son, so she didn't think too much about it. Now that her son mentioned it, she couldn't help but think about it. Could it be that you bumped into something unclean? Or did that woman feed you something strange? Chapter 1053. If Yin Jihong knew what was going on, he wouldn't be so depressed. I'm not sure either. I clearly hated her back then and was very careful to keep a distance from her. But she would always take the initiative to come to me from time to time. Sometimes she would even touch me intentionally or unintentionally. Mrs. Yin's face darkened when she heard this. She took the initiative to approach him and even touched him physically. This woman's thoughts were as clear as day. What a shameless vixen. Later, after some contact, it seemed like Yin Jihong's face was livid and he couldn't continue. Whenever he thought of the intimate contact he had with Wen Jingping during this period of time, he couldn't help but feel nauseous. All right. If you don't want to talk about it, then don't. Mom knows. It must be that woman's doing. Don't worry. Mom will avenge you. I won't let that woman have an easy time. Compared to Mrs. Yin's heartache, Mr. Yin was more rational. He looked at his son suspiciously and doubted his words. You've really thought it through and come to your senses? You didn't lie to us on purpose so that I'll let you go and run to that woman? The corner of Yin Jihong's mouth twitched. He realized for the first time that his father had such a rich imagination. Dad, don't worry. There's nothing wrong with your son's eyes. Why would he fall for a woman who seduces men everywhere? Is he worried that he's not cuckolded enough? Mr. Yin snorted and mocked him mercilessly. That's not what you said 2 days ago. I already said that it wasn't me. Mr. Yin snorted. He was still a little upset about his son's actions during this period of time. But since his son had already said this, it was obvious that he had indeed thought it through. Thinking of what he had just said, his eyes narrowed dangerously. He had more or less done some business in the past few years. As a businessman, even if they weren't superstitious, they mostly believed in the word luck. Previously, he had been blinded by his son's belated rebellion. Now that he thought about it carefully, he also felt that this strange woman who had appeared out of nowhere was a little strange. Immediately, his face darkened and he said, Since you've thought it through, you'd better behave during this period of time. Don't contact this woman again. This time he was so infatuated that he even dared to talk back to me and your mother. Next time he might even hit me and your mother. Tomorrow I'll find a master to see if this woman is a human or a ghost. If she's a human, we'll catch her. If she's a ghost, we'll catch her. We can't just let this go. Yin Jihong opened his mouth, but he knew that his father's concern was not wrong. If Wen Jingping really used some underhanded means, who knew if there would be any repercussions if he fell for it so secretly? It was best to leave this matter to his father, but, Dad, you be careful too. If you don't teach him a lesson, you might end up falling into his trap as well. That would be a big loss. You little brat, do you think your father is like you? You're so young that you can't find your bearings after being coaxed by others? Don't worry, I know what to do. Yin Jihong's face darkened. He wanted to refute with a few words to prove himself, but when he thought of all the ridiculous things that had happened during this period of time, he suddenly lost his confidence. His disgust and dissatisfaction with Wen Jingping also reached its peak at this moment. The more he doted on this woman and listened to her words in the past, the more he disliked and rejected her now. Chapter 1054. It was impossible for them to meet again, but he couldn't take this lying down, unless someone's reputation was ruined. What everyone didn't know was that the moment Yin Jihong woke up, the culprit, Wen Jingping, also felt a chill down her spine. The uneasiness in her heart reached its peak. As the male lead, Yin Jihong couldn't leave the set for too long during filming. However, this drama had been filming for a long time. When Yin Jihong was brought home by his father, he didn't have many scenes left. In addition, the Li family was one of the investors of this drama, and the Yin and Li families were close. Even the director couldn't stop the elders from teaching their children a lesson. Thus, they put Yin Jihong's remaining scenes at the end and filmed the others first. There were always more solutions than problems. Although Yin Jihong's departure disrupted the original filming plan, it didn't affect it much. After some adjustments, the original order was quickly restored. The only one who panicked was Wen Jingping. When Yin Jihong first asked for leave, she didn't realize the severity of the situation. She only thought that he had something to do at home and would be back in 2 days. In the end, Yin Jihong didn't come back in 2 days. Instead, she was asked to leave by the assistant director of the production team. Of course, it was Father Yin who asked the director to leave. Yin Jihong was fine. It was normal for male leads to hang around the set every day. This woman was just a guest actress in the drama. Her scenes were completed in less than half a month, yet she refused to leave. It was obvious that she had ulterior motives. Wen Jingping was in disbelief when she was chased away. She hinted to the assistant director that she was Yin Jihong's woman. If the production team chased her away while Yin Jihong was away, it would be hard to explain when Yin Jihong came back. The assistant director couldn't help but laugh. I know Miss Wen is young Master Yin's woman, but the person who asked you to leave the set is President Yin. We're in a difficult position. Miss Wen is a smart person. You should understand our difficulties. Don't make it difficult for us. Wen Jingping froze and her expression changed. President Yin? Which President Yin? How many other President Yins can there be? Of course it's young Master Yin's father. Wen Jingping's heart skipped a beat. She finally sensed a trace of danger. Why would President Yin? Why would he contact us over such a small matter and interfere with our small production team's matters? The assistant director looked at Wen Jingping with a smile, but there was a trace of contempt and disdain in his eyes. You'll have to ask Miss Wen herself. You're asking me? Wen Jingping's expression froze slightly, and she subconsciously avoided his gaze. How would I know? Miss Su, do you know why young Master Yin's not coming to the set these few days? Why? Young Master Yin's hands, young masters' mother's young masters' father's young Master Yin's? Now it's President Yin who's asking you to leave through us. If you leave obediently, you can still save yourself some face. Otherwise, when President Yin does it himself, you'll be the one at a disadvantage. The assistant director's meaning was clear. You're indeed Yin Jihong's woman, but no matter how powerful Yin Jihong is, he's still President Yin's son. The person who wanted to chase her away was President Yin. Yin Jihong couldn't even protect himself. How could he protect a small shrimp like her? The production team was still asking her to leave. If she didn't know what was good for her, she would be chased out tomorrow. Chapter 1055. Wen Jingping's face turned green and white. In the end, she didn't dare to go against these people. She pursed her lips and nodded unwillingly. Since she had already left the production team, Wen Jingping naturally couldn't continue to stay in the hotel provided by the production team. The accommodation that Do Channy had provided for her had been rejected by Li Yu after she hooked up with Ding Juesi and entered the current production team. She definitely couldn't go back. Helpless, Wen Jingping could only rent a shabby single room outside with her remaining savings. Just as she settled down in this shabby little house that was unpleasant to the eye, Wen Jingping received another call. Not long ago she had asked Yin Jihong to help her with a small endorsement deal, but it was gone. After that, a TV series where she had relied on Yin Jihong's relationship to get the role of the sixth female lead also called her. They politely told her that they had found a more suitable actress and regretted that they couldn't work with her. Of course this was just an excuse. When Jingping finally understood the meaning of the assistant director's words. Yin Jihong had been caught by his father and couldn't even protect himself. After his father dealt with him, the next person to be dealt with would be her. What she had to face now was not only that her career, which had finally improved by relying on Yin Jihong, would once again enter a cold winter. It was also very likely that she would be blacklisted by the Yin family and face further suppression. Thinking of this, Wen Jingping's hands couldn't help trembling. She was afraid and angry. She wanted to smash things to vent her anger, but she also knew that if she smashed things she would really have to live on the streets. In extreme anger, she decisively vented her anger on the system. Didn't you say that Yin Jihong was very favored at home and that as long as I got rid of him, it would be equivalent to getting rid of the Yin family? What's going on now? He's been locked up. Although the system was also very surprised that things would take such a sudden turn and suddenly go out of control, it still did its job to answer Wen Jingping's doubts. After testing, after the scandal between the host and Ding Juesi was exposed, the public's favorability decreased by 20%. Before this, Wen Jingping had a certain fan base. Most of these fans came from her previous live broadcast audience on Konami. It was a pity that a portion of the audience had already been washed away by the Demon Empress that she had participated in before. After that, her entertainment debut suffered a setback and she was unable to successfully form a group. Onlookers kicked her when she was down. They quickly terminated her contract on the grounds that her actions had a bad impact and brought a negative image to the platform. Not only did they not pay her a single cent for the breach of contract, but they also made her pay a sum of money. They squeezed out most of the money that she had painstakingly saved during this period of time. Without the support of the platform, Wen Jingping naturally couldn't do live broadcasts to attract fans like before. In addition, in the past 1 or 2 years, whenever she had the slightest inclination to clear her name, she would expose a bigger scandal. No matter how loyal her fans were, there wouldn't be many of them left after what she had done. Especially with the recent scandals about Wen Jingping's rumored partner being a married man, one could imagine the impact it had on her fans. The expression on Wen Jingping's face stiffened. It was rare for her to be smart enough to understand the meaning of the system's words. What do you mean? Are you blaming me for having a bad reputation and dragging Yin Jihong down? The system pretended to be dead and didn't respond, but the little program that was flying around in her mind was silently complaining, so you still have some self-awareness and know that you're dragging him down. I thought you were so stupid that you couldn't even see that. Chapter 1056. Of course, the system couldn't say this out loud, otherwise Wen Jingping would go even crazier. What do I do now? Yin Jihong has been locked up by his father, how am I supposed to see him? 4 rich people like them, the security in their homes must be very tight, how am I supposed to break in? Yin Jihong's favorability towards me was so high before, he would definitely think of a way to find me, right? Once he's here, he'll definitely have a way to help me. Wen Jingping anxiously walked around in circles in the room. In the end, her eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of hope, hoping that Yin Jihong would be able to save her from this predicament. Hearing her say this, the system was silent for a moment, but still had to remind her. Host, please don't take things for granted. The supporting male lead Yin Jihong's favorability towards the host is mostly influenced by items. In view of the fact that the supporting male lead Yin Jihong originally didn't have a good impression of the host, in the next 2 weeks, the host must come into contact with the target and use items to strengthen the favorability. Otherwise, the effects of the items used by the host will be ineffective. Ineffective? The smile on Wen Jingping's face completely froze, so much so that it looked a bit sinister. How can it be ineffective? How can the items provided by the system be ineffective just like that? Are you playing with me? The system was very annoyed by her bombardment of questions that couldn't distinguish right from wrong. The items exchanged by the host were originally the lowest level of favorability items, so they have a certain time limit. Moreover, the target's impression of the host before using the items is already bad, so it imperceptibly affects the effectiveness of the items. If the host can maintain constant physical contact with the target for a long period of time, and repeatedly use items on him, causing the target's favorability towards the host to steadily increase until it reaches a critical point, then naturally it can ensure that the target is completely captured by the host. But the key point now is that the items used by the host on the target are intermittent and not enough, and now there's no way to maintain daily physical contact with him. In the long run, the effects of the items used before will gradually become ineffective. I don't care. Wen Jingping was no longer in the mood to listen to the system's lengthy analysis and explanation. You didn't tell me all this back then. I spent so much effort and spent all the favorable impression points I had painstakingly accumulated on Yin Jihong. Now you're telling me that just because he's locked up and can't have physical contact with me, there's no way for me to continue using the items on him. Everything I've done so far has been for naught. Are you toying with me? What kind of rubbish system is this? I'm going to lodge a complaint against you. Oh. The system was very cold and its patience with Wen Jingping was wearing thin bit by bit. After replying indifferently, it fell silent and pretended to be dead. No matter how much Wen Jingping screamed, it did not make a sound. Wen Jingping threw a tantrum. When she realized that no one was paying attention to her, she collapsed to the ground. She couldn't understand why she had become like this. There were so many opportunities and so many helpers that she could easily take the shortcut and become a top person. However, every time she reached a critical moment, there would always be all kinds of problems that would push her back to the bottom of the valley. What exactly had gone wrong? Why was it like this? While Wen Jingping was puzzled, on the other hand, Su Yiyan finally heard the system notification that she wanted to hear the most. Congratulations to the host for snatching the female protagonist's golden finger plus 10 progress. Current progress is 85%. Please continue to work hard. Victory is in sight. Chapter 1057. Su Yiyan's hand movements suddenly paused, and a light flashed through his eyes. Finally, Su Yiyan's lips curled up. But what happened? The progress bar increased so much all of a sudden. Based on the time limit of the item, the remnant of the item that the female lead used on Yin Jihong should have lost its effect. Su Yiyan suddenly realized, in other words, Yin Jihong is completely awake now? A person who was forced to be stupid for such a long time suddenly wasn't stupid anymore. Thinking back on the stupid things he did during this period of time, it was obvious that he wished he could wash away all these stains before he transmigrated back. Wen Jingping staked everything on one throw and bet all her chips on Yin Jihong because she had her eyes on Yin Jihong's connections and background, which could help her quickly gain a foothold in the entertainment industry. Now that Yin Jihong was awake, everything she relied on in the past turned into a sharp weapon to hurt others. The wider the Yin family's connections were, the greater the degree of suppression Wen Jingping faced. As expected, people shouldn't be too greedy. Putting in so much effort to covet something that didn't belong to you would only suffer the consequences of your own actions in the end. Su Yiyan secretly sighed at Wen Jingping's ability to seek death, and then focused his attention on the progress bar. As the original child of the world in this world, Wen Jingping's halo as the female lead had mostly dissipated. One of the male leads that she had personally chosen had turned against her. She did not know where he had run off to, and the other did not even look at her. The supporting male leads that were supposed to be her loyal supporters and stepping stones were either instigated by Su Yiyan, or they didn't even have the chance to see her before they were cut off first. The remaining 15 points were because Wen Jingping still had the ability to find other spare tires, or the key was on Dou Qianni? Thinking about how his progress bar overlapped with that of Hua Qinhuan's male lead, Su Yiyan felt that the latter was more likely. So, if he wanted to eliminate the source of trouble and completely control his fate in his own hands, he still had to go against the bug known as Dou Qianni? Speaking of which, I haven't heard anything about Dou Qianni for a long time. She had thought that such a vengeful and ruthless character would definitely use force if soft tactics didn't work. For this reason, she had been very worried and anxious for a period of time, but in the end, it was so calm and peaceful? Was it because he had thought things through and knew that he couldn't force others to do things they didn't want to do? Or was the stability at this moment just the calm before the storm? Su Yiyan did not know that it was not that Dou Qianni did not want to use force, but that his current physical condition did not allow him to fight head-on with Hua Qinhuan and the others. Boss. Liu looked worriedly at her boss who was lying on the hospital bed with various tubes attached to his body. Dou Qianni opened his eyes and glanced at him. Don't look so dejected. I'm not dead yet. How are those fleas in the company doing recently? President Qi and Department Head Jiang have been close recently. Vice President Fang seems to be trying to find a way to contact. Liu paused and carefully glanced at him. Vice President Dou. Dou Qianni instantly understood what he meant and sneered. I'm not dead yet and they can't wait. Well, while I still have energy, I'll cut off these people's outstretched hands first and let those people who are always looking forward to my death see their future in advance. Chapter 1058. The deputy director Dou that Liu mentioned was Dou Qianni's aunt. Back then, the Dou family was in turmoil and those who were waiting for an opportunity to fight for the family property were either dead or disabled. As a married daughter, Dou Qianni's aunt was lucky not to be implicated. To this day she still received shares and dividends from the Dou family company. She was the only remaining director of the company with the surname Dou other than Dou Qianni. Because of this, there were people who secretly contacted Aunt Dou from time to time in the past few years. Their motives were self-evident. Dou Qianni's eyes turned cold as he sneered. I'm not dead yet and they can't wait? Well, since I still have the energy, I'll cut off these people's outstretched hands first. I'll let those people who are always waiting for me to die see what happens to them. When Liu heard him say this, she suddenly thought of something and shivered. She lowered her head and was silent for a moment before she said something else. Boss, it seems that someone is suspecting us about the Cheng family. Do you think? Dou Qianni frowned and was a little surprised. Who is it? The other party's whereabouts are very secretive and cautious. They didn't leave any big traces, so we haven't found them yet. Do you think it could be Miss Su's people? Dou Qianni narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything. Just then Liu's phone suddenly rang. In the empty ward, the shrill ringtone was particularly abrupt. Liu subconsciously glanced at Dou Qianni and said carefully, I'll take this call. Dou Qianni nodded and closed his eyes again. Liu breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly picked up the phone. At the same time, she turned to leave the ward so as not to disturb Dou Qianni. However, just as she grabbed the door handle of the ward, the news from the other end of the phone made her expression change. How did this happen? Liu's exclamation successfully made Dou Qianni open his eyes again. What happened? Liu's expression was very ugly. Just now, someone from the company called and said that the relevant departments suddenly sent people to the company for an inspection and took away a group of people and the department's information. Not long after that, several directors of the company got into trouble one after another. Now our company's stock price. It would be fine if it was just some kickbacks, but the directors that Liu mentioned were also involved in a murder case. One was to allow his juniors to embezzle the hard-earned money of the people under him. When people came to cause trouble, he secretly bribed people to kill the leaders and make it an accident. Then he casually found another crime and blackmailed the victims' families. This caused several poor families who were already having a hard time to be ruined. There was also one who was more crazy in private. He especially liked to find those little girls who didn't know the ways of the world and let those pimps cheat many little girls for him to play with. Later on, when the girl's family came to make trouble, this person even beat the girl's parents to death and destroyed the evidence. No matter what it was, as long as it involved human lives, it couldn't be settled easily. Originally, because the people in the company were taken away for investigation, the company's image had already been seriously affected. At this sensitive time, these crazy past events suddenly broke out, and the company's stock price suddenly couldn't hold up. In addition, Do Channy was still in the hospital and couldn't get out. The whole Do enterprise could be said to be leaderless and fell into chaos all of a sudden. As soon as Do Channy heard the ins and outs of these things from Liu, he knew that there must be someone behind this matter. Otherwise, everything couldn't be so coincidental. Chapter 1059. However, Do Channy was still unable to determine who the person behind this was. Just as he was about to ask Liu to investigate the matter, his phone rang again. Liu thought that something had happened at the company again, so she didn't ask Do Channy for instructions and picked up the phone first. Who would have thought that this call was not from the company at all? But, are you looking for the boss? May I ask who you are? Liu's expression froze as he looked at Do Channy with fear. Do Channy noticed the change in his expression and asked coldly, "Who is calling?" "It's President Hua from the Hua Group." The Hua Group? Do Channy was stunned, but he quickly realized who Liu was talking about. His eyes turned cold as he reached out his hand and said, "Give me the phone." Liu felt as if he had been granted amnesty. He hurriedly handed over the phone as if he was holding a hot potato. "Hua Chenhuan?" When Hua Chenhuan heard Do Channy's voice, she did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "President Do, you must have received my gift. Are you satisfied?" Do Channy's face darkened. "It's me." Hua Chenhuan admitted it without hesitation, but there was a hint of coldness in her voice. "President Do, you gave my wife's family such a big gift. How could we not return the favor?" "So it's you." It was unexpected but reasonable. Do Channy was not surprised, but he did not expect to meet Hua Chenhuan so soon. "Of course it's me. President Do, you might not know that I am a petty person. I don't like people touching my things, especially my people. I can't even stand to look at them, let alone kidnap or threaten them." "Oh." Do Channy raised his eyebrows and chuckled. "If someone did that, what would you do, President Hua? If you stretch your head too far, you'll be beaten. If you stretch your hand too far, you'll be chopped off. Since some people don't want it, I don't mind doing it for them." Do Channy sneered and said, "I'm afraid Mr. Hua doesn't have that ability. Whether one is capable or not is not just a matter of words. What happened today is just the beginning. I hope you can live until the end and see if I have the ability to cut off some people's extra hands." Hua Chenhuan's words accurately pierced Do Channy's heart. He had racked his brains and done so many things just so that he could live well. After saying this, Hua Chenhuan didn't care about Do Channy's reaction and directly hung up the phone. It was as if he had called to give Do Channy a heads up. He wanted him to know that his revenge had begun, but there was nothing he could do but watch the building collapse. Do Channy obviously knew what Hua Chenhuan was thinking. His face was so gloomy that it could drip water. Liu, who was watching from the side, was frightened. At the same time, he secretly admired President Hua from the bottom of his heart. He hadn't seen anyone who dared to provoke his boss so blatantly for a long time. Hua Chenhuan was not afraid at all. Or rather, he had the confidence to confront the other party. As he said, the Do Group's scandals one after another and the collapse of the stock was just an appetizer. He knew very well where Do Channy's bottom line was and how to destroy a person's bottom line. After dealing with Do Channy's matter, Hua Chenhuan returned home. Su Yiyin had just bathed the little guy and was busy applying moisturizer and talcum powder for him. Chapter 1060. After soaking in the water, the little guy was lying on the soft, snow-white bath towel, happily kicking his chubby little legs. Su Yiyin took out the baby cream and spread it evenly on her hands. Then, she mischievously treated the little guy's chubby little face as a small dough and spread it down from top to bottom. Then she patted his chubby little face, making his chubby little face tremble. It was so cute. Su Yiyan didn't use much strength to wipe his face. Perhaps the little guy knew that she was playing with him, so he didn't cry. Instead, he smiled foolishly. When Hu Chenhuan entered the door, she saw this scene. Her frown instantly eased and she walked over. Su Yiyan heard footsteps and turned to look. When she saw Hu Chenhuan, her eyes lit up. "You're back." Hu Chenhuan saw that the two of them were having fun. After walking to Su Yiyan's side, she pinched her son's chubby little face and squeezed it like a toy. Hu Chenhuan didn't use much strength to pinch his face, but she couldn't stop him from pinching it back and forth. At first, the little guy was a little confused. After being pinched a few times, he finally reacted. His little mouth flattened and he howled. Su Yiyan saw this and squeezed Hu Chenhuan away. She picked up the child and coaxed, "Good boy, don't cry. Daddy is playing with you." Bad. The little guy had been able to make some simple syllables recently. As soon as he was held in his mother's arms, he grabbed Su Yiyan's lapel pitifully and complained about his father. Yes. Daddy is bad. Let's not play with him." Su Yiyan comforted her crying son and rolled her eyes at a certain childish person. "Why did you provoke him again? Don't I have to coax him when he cries?" Being glared at by her, Hu Chenhuan felt guilty and wronged. "I saw that you guys were having fun, so I wanted to tease him." Who knew that he couldn't take it? When Hu Chenhuan said this, he glanced at his son. He felt that this little brat was deliberately making things difficult for him. When he was playing with his mother, he was very cooperative, but when it came to him, he cried. The difference in treatment was too obvious. When Su Yiyan heard what he said, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him again. She thought to herself, "I'm playing with a child and you're playing with a child. How can it be the same?" Fortunately, a child's temper came and went quickly. It didn't take long for them to forget about this little episode and play happily with Dun Dun and the others. After Su Yiyan comforted the little baby, she did not forget about her big baby. After handing the little baby to the nanny and Yuan, she turned around and hugged Hu Chenhuan's neck. "You seem to be going out a lot recently. Is there something wrong?" Hu Chenhuan held Su Yiyan's waist so that she could hang on to him better. "There is something, but it has been solved." "That's good." Su Yiyan could see that Hu Chenhuan did not want to say more, so she did not ask more and changed the topic. "Is there any news from Uncle?" Although Zheng Qianyang had moved out, he would come to see the little boy from time to time. However, because of Hu Qihan's matter, he seemed to have been busy recently and had not come for a few days. At the mention of this matter, Hu Chenhuan's eyes flashed slightly. There is already some progress. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, Uncle may be busy recently, so he has to leave for a while. Su Yiyan nodded in understanding. Zheng Qianyang had been looking for this group of people for so many years. During this period, it was not that he did not have any clues, but there was no way to catch them. This showed how cunning this group of people was. It was always right to be cautious. Chapter 1061. Tell him to be careful and come back early. Hu Chenhuan was no less worried about Zheng Qianyang than Su Yiyan, but he also knew that there were always some things in this world that were important enough to make people disregard life and death. Even if they knew that there would be danger, they would still do it without hesitation. "By the way, your friend?" "Friend?" Su Yiyan was stunned for a while before she realized who Hu Chenhuan was talking about. She asked in confusion, "You're talking about Xiaoqi. What's wrong with her?" "Her boyfriend seems to have made a lot of moves recently." Su Yiyan's eyes lit up slightly. She suddenly remembered that Ling Xiaoqi had mentioned to her before that Ning Xiyuan had the intention to make a move on her scumbag father. What did he do? He got someone to attack his future father-in-law's company across the province, causing internal strife in the company. The stock price fell greatly and it was like a plate of loose sand. In addition, he also got someone to fish in troubled waters and sow discord between the internal staff of the company and his father-in-law's wife. The husband and wife fought, and it was even filmed and posted on the internet, causing a heated discussion. If nothing goes wrong, he should be able to buy all the scattered shares that were sold out in a few days and become a major shareholder of that company. Although Su Yiyan was mentally prepared, she was still a little surprised. She was surprised that Ning Xiyuan's actions were so fast. He did it as he said and didn't give the other party any chance to react at all. Moreover, Su Yiyan's impression of Ning Xiyuan had always been that he was gentle, polite, gentle, and humble. She had completely forgotten that this person, as the heir of the Ning and Qi families, was simply a wolf in sheep's clothing. Xiaoqi mentioned this to me before. During the period when we went to Grandpa's place, her biological father secretly wanted to cause trouble again, but Ning Xiyuan found out. Do you still remember that time when that man came to look for Xiaoqi and wanted to kidnap her against her will? At that time, it was Ning Xiyuan who saved her. I remember. You even complained to me before that someone's motive for saving the damsel in distress was impure. I still feel that his motive for saving the damsel in distress was impure. However, as long as he is sincerely good to Xiaoqi, it doesn't matter whether his motive is pure or not. When Su Yiyan said this, she let out a long sigh of relief. Back then, the two of them weren't related, but Ning Xiyuan was willing to stand up for Xiaoqi. Now that the two of them are together and know about Xiaoqi's family's troubles, it's even more impossible for him to remain indifferent. Xiaoqi said that he was going to swallow that man's company and give it to her as a betrothal gift, as a proposal gift. Xiaoqi wasn't sure if she should accept it, but I felt that she should accept it and had to accept it. That man had caused her and her mother to suffer so much. She deserved these things. Moreover, this is also Ning Xiyuan's feelings for her. For him to be able to do this for her, it shows that he really cares about Xiaoqi. If it were me and someone was willing to do so much for me, I wouldn't be able to remain indifferent, right? The more Hu Chenhuan listened, the more she felt that something was amiss. She frowned slightly and said sourly, "Are you envious of her? If you like, I can transfer all the businesses under my name to you. Other than that, I can also hand over my salary and private money to you for safekeeping." The hidden meaning was that she could do what he could do, or even more than him. She didn't have to be envious of others at all. Chem? Su Yiyan's attention was instantly attracted, and her focus was a little crooked. "You actually hid money behind my back." Hu Chenhuan was speechless. Chapter 1062. Ahem. Hu Chenhuan felt that he needed to defend himself. Actually, it's not considered a private stash. It's just the basic funds for the company's operations. I see. Su Yiyan muttered and stared at him with a half-smile. "Okay, I'm just kidding. I don't want your private stash, nor am I envious of Xiaoqi. I'm just happy for her. Children from single-parent families have it harder than ordinary children. Her mother's family doesn't recognize her and her mother, so they've been living a hard life all these years. She and her mother are very strong-willed, so there's a limit to how much I can help them. Now that there's someone who's willing to stand up for her, dote on her, and give her the best things, I'm very happy. Everything will be fine." Hu Chenhuan lowered his head and kissed Su Yiyan's forehead. "I hope so." Ning Xiyuan didn't disappoint Su Yiyan. He and Ling Xiaoqi started dating with the intention of getting married. Everyone in the family, including Ning Chirue, who was always running around and having fun, knew about Ling Xiaoqi's existence. It could be said that the two families had long regarded Ling Xiaoqi as part of their family. When they heard about the troubles in Ling Xiaoqi's family and knew that Ning Xiyuan wanted to stand up for her, they didn't have any objections. They even brainstormed together to help him think of a way to quickly bring down a certain scumbag father's company. The Qin family was considered a respectable family in their world, but in front of the Ning and Qi families, this was not enough. Ning Xiyuan just worked with a few partners to secretly suppress the Qin family's company for a period of time, and the Qin family's company's capital chain was broken. The small shareholders in the company saw that the situation wasn't good and began to sell their shares. Some of the management-level employees heard the news and started to resign one after another. In just a few days, the huge company fell apart. By the time Qin Fengde reacted, the company had already become an empty shell. However, this wasn't the worst. Qin Fengde hadn't even thought of a way to get through this terrible crisis before he was completely knocked down by another piece of bad news. He, who had always been at home, had never expected that there would be a day when the wheel of fortune would turn on him. He had been cheated on by his own wife. The one who cheated on Qin Fengde was an executive in his company and also his wife's first love. This man met Mrs. Qin in university and fell in love with her. However, because of his poor family background, Mrs. Qin's family forcefully broke him up and even used some tricks to chase him away. Not long after, Mrs. Qin's parents quickly arranged a marriage for her, and the man was Qin Fengde. From this point of view, Qin Fengde could actually be considered as one of the accomplices in separating this pair of ill-fated Mandarin ducks. However, at that time Mrs. Qin was still young. Even though she was stubborn and did a series of shocking things to ruin this marriage, in the end she couldn't resist the pressure from her family and the destruction of reality. She compromised and married Qin Fengde. When they first got married, Qin Fengde was at his worst. It wasn't that Mrs. Qin didn't fight with him, but later on she had a son. Mrs. Qin, on the other hand, settled down and focused on raising the child. She completely treated this child as her only spiritual support. Because of this, when she reunited with her first love after so many years and the other party was still deeply in love with her and took the initiative to pursue her, Mrs. Chin cared about her son and didn't immediately accept this former first love. Chapter 1063. At that time, no one would have thought that Mrs. Chin's only son would die a few years later. Just look at Ling Xiaoqi's fate in her previous life. How crazy would a mother become after losing her child? Her son's death was the last straw that broke Mrs. Chin's back. Qin Fangde couldn't wait to bring his illegitimate daughter home and let her replace his son as the heir of the Qin family. This also erased the last bit of affection Mrs. Chin had for her husband. From then on, Mrs. Chin had no qualms about sleeping with her ex-lover and used her position to transfer the company's assets. When Qin Fangde caught her in bed, Mrs. Chin was very calm as if she had expected this day to come. Since you've already found out, I don't have to waste my breath. I'll have someone send the divorce agreement over in a bit. Sign it and I'll move out. How dare you, how? Qin Fangde was so angry that his whole body trembled and his face turned green. Mrs. Chin sneered and said mockingly, "Why wouldn't I dare? You're allowed to fool around with a bunch of women, but I'm not allowed to find a man? Compared to you who changes women every few months, I only have this one man. I'm already giving you a lot of face." Qin Fangde's face darkened when he heard this. He raised his hand to slap Mrs. Chin but was stopped by her adulterer. Qin Fangde's body had been hollowed out by years of sensual pleasures. How could he be a match for Mrs. Chin, his first love, who worked out all year round? After being pushed by him, she staggered back a few steps and almost fell. He finally steadied himself and his face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. You, what's wrong with us? You want to hit me? Did I say something wrong? What right do you have to hit me? I've dealt with a lot of women for you all these years. If it wasn't for Junwoo, I would have divorced you a long time ago. Now that Junwoo is gone, your heart isn't with our family anymore. Just divorce, it'll be good for everyone. Qin Fangde's eyes were red and his face was twisted. Impossible, don't think I don't know what you're trying to do. Do I look like such a stupid person to divorce you and let you two live together? You want a divorce? No way. Qin Fangde was naturally unwilling to wear this green hat, but he had his own considerations. Mrs. Chin was a member of the D family. Back then, the marriage between the two families was because both families were well matched in terms of social status. Marriage would benefit both families' businesses. Although the D family's development was not as good as the Chin family's, they still had some assets. Now he was about to go bankrupt with a huge debt. At this juncture, if he really let her divorce him, he would have to bear all these debts alone. On the other hand, if the two of them did not divorce, their assets would be joint assets and so would their debts. Although she was a married daughter, she was still a member of the D family. If he really had to go into debt, the D family would help him out for Mrs. Chin's sake so that he wouldn't have to live in such a miserable state. It could be said that Mrs. Chin was Qin Fangde's only hope right now. How could he let her go just because he was angry? Mrs. Chin's expression changed when she heard this. She looked at the man who had been entangled with her for more than 20 years. There was no longer any affection in her eyes. All that was left was a strong sense of anger and resentment. You don't agree? Do you still think you're the high and mighty CEO of the Qin Corporation? Qin Fangde, wake up. You've long been deserted by everyone. Now anyone can crush you like an ant. Chapter 1064. You shameless B*T, you promiscuous B*T. Qin Fangde was a male chauvinist to begin with, so how could he tolerate a woman talking about him like that? Moreover, this woman used to depend on him. Immediately, without a care, he pounced on the tall and strong man in front of Mrs. Chin. Unfortunately, the man was prepared. When he saw Qin Fangde pouncing on him, he didn't dodge. Instead, he took the initiative and kicked Qin Fangde's chest. With a bang, Qin Fangde fell to the ground. His face was twisted in pain, and he glared at the two of them as if he was dipped in poison. He couldn't wait to tear them apart. If I'm a promiscuous B*Tch, then you're a B*Tch who only thinks about the lower half of your body. Mrs. Chin looked down at Qin Fangde with indescribable coldness and disappointment in her eyes. Qin Fangde, you better understand that I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm just informing you. You better know what's good for you and obediently sign the divorce agreement. Otherwise, we have plenty of ways to deal with you. You're no longer the person in charge of the Qin Corporation that everyone fawns over. Anyone can step on a drowning dog. With that temper of yours, you've offended at least a few dozen people, if not hundreds. One spit from each of them can drown you. Not to mention my family has long disliked you. You probably don't want those enemies of yours to know that you, Qin Fangda, are not only useless, but also have such a big cuckold on your head, right? It's embarrassing that I've been cuckolded, but if this gets out, aren't you afraid that people will say that you're shameless and fickle? Reputation is something that only the poor should consider. Just like how you've had so many women outside before, would you care about what others say? After leaving you, I'm still the young lady of the D family. No matter how much they look down on me and how much they say behind my back, they wouldn't dare to really do it in front of me. But it's different for you. Hearing this, Qin Fangda's expression changed again. Just as the person in front of him said, although he didn't openly have women outside, he didn't deliberately hide it either. For one, he didn't think it was something shameful for a man. For another, he thought that those who criticized him behind his back were just jealous of him. Moreover, those people who couldn't even make him look at them directly, no matter how bad they were behind his back, wouldn't they have to pretend to be mute in front of him? But now he was like a tiger in a flat land. Being cuckolded wasn't something he should be proud of. These people didn't dare say anything in front of the D family, but they would definitely run to him. Qin Fangda's face turned even uglier at the thought of the possible humiliation he would suffer after this matter was exposed. Mrs. Qin saw the change in his expression, and the mockery in her eyes intensified. Since I've already said what I wanted to say, I'll move out today. I'll give you one day to think about it. I want to see the divorce agreement tomorrow. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. I'm UBB, Qin Yan. When Su Yiyan heard about this, he was completely dumbfounded. Qin Fangda's wife took her old lover as her first love's lover and made Qin Fangda a cuckold? This was too unexpected. Su Yiyan's impression of this woman was still limited to Ling Xiaoqi's one-sided description of her in his previous life and the pile of information he found after the investigation. He had no idea that there was such a thing behind the scenes. Chapter 1065. That's not right. After the initial shock, Su Yiyan quickly realized that something was wrong. Didn't Mrs. Qin have an affair with Qin Fangda's brother? Where did this first love come from? Could it be that the information back then was wrong? It's not really wrong. Based on the information, Mrs. Qin was probably forced to break up with her current lover. Not long after that, her family arranged for her to meet Qin Fangda and wanted to set them up. Unexpectedly, this aroused Mrs. Qin's rebellious mentality. She didn't follow her family's arrangement to develop a relationship with Qin Fangda. Instead, she took the initiative to hook up with Qin Fangda's brother. However, because of the Qin family's internal power struggle, Qin Jinghong got into trouble. Qin Fangda was the only healthy person left in the Qin family. She had no choice but to follow her family's arrangement and marry Qin Fangda. After listening to Hua Qinhuan's explanation, Su Yiyan only felt shocked and ironic. Rebellious mentality? Her rebellious mentality really came late. If she was really so unwilling, she wouldn't have broken up with him back then. Who was she trying to disgust by doing this after they had already broken up? Sometimes people were so contradictory. She had already made a choice, but because she didn't want others to think that she was weak and betrayed him first, she would cover her ears and steal the bell. Little did she know that these actions just proved that she was guilty. They divorced? They did. Her lover was quite capable. He forced Qin Fangda to spend a lot of money and didn't let Mrs. Qin suffer any losses. Su Yiyan snorted coldly. This is called evil people will be dealt with by evil people. This isn't the most infuriating thing. The most infuriating thing is that after the divorce, Qin Fangda found out that this adulterous couple had already started to transfer assets. After the divorce, not only did he lose most of his efforts to Mrs. Qin, but he also completely emptied his funds. In a fit of anger, he had a stroke and was hospitalized. When Su Yiyan heard this, she didn't know why, but she suddenly felt that it was a bit unreal. This man who had been haunting Ling Xiaoqi for more than 20 years actually had a stroke and collapsed? If he had a stroke just like that, then his company? Hua Qinhuan didn't answer directly but tactfully told the truth. Even if he didn't have a stroke, he couldn't keep the company. It was just that this stroke of his had unknowingly sped up the biting of the various forces. Not long after, Su Yiyan received news from the other side. Qin Fangda was hospitalized after a stroke, and various forces were busy carving up his company. Those mistresses who had been kept by him in the past only wanted his money and the position of the Qin family's legal wife. Now that Qin Fangda had collapsed, they couldn't wait to run away. How could they walk right into the trap? Because of Mrs. Qin's actions back then, Qin Fangde didn't have any other illegitimate children. His only daughter hated him like an enemy. After being hospitalized for a few days, Qin Fangde didn't even see a shadow of a person who came to visit him. He had to rely on the nurses for his daily needs. If it wasn't for his death at this time, it would be easy for others to use against him in the fight for the family property. Qin Fangde might not even be able to get this last bit of decent treatment. Of course, this wasn't anything to be happy about. When the fight for the family property was over, a cripple like him would be completely useless, and his good days would come to an end. Just when Su Yiyan thought that this family's troublesome matter would come to an end, and that Qin Fangde, who had lost all his support, would be in an incomparably miserable future, there was a huge turning point. Chapter 1066. What did you say? Qin Fangde's son's death has something to do with Mrs. Qin's lover? To be precise, it has something to do with the Qin family and her lover. Although Su Yiyan had guessed that Qin Fangde's son's death might have been intentional, she was still a little shocked when it was confirmed. Forget about the Qin family. Qin Fangde's son was his chosen heir. If they wanted to seize power, killing him was the best shortcut. What's up with that lover of yours? Didn't I tell you before? This lover was deeply in love with Mrs. Qin. Many years later, when they met again, he was still thinking about her and wanted to be with her. However, because Mrs. Qin cared about her son, she never agreed. Su Yiyan froze. So he took her son. Yeah. The fastest way to get to the finish line was to get rid of all the obstacles along the way. This man wanted to get Mrs. Qin, but Mrs. Qin didn't want to accept him because of her son. Therefore, he decided to go all the way and get rid of Mrs. Qin's son. He was ruthless and stupid. He didn't realize that when he did this, he had unavoidably become a knife in someone else's hand. After Su Yiyan heard Hua Qinhuan's explanation, she was silent for a long time before she sneered. Deeply in love? He clearly knew that the child was a piece of flesh that fell from the mother's body, yet he was so ruthless as to kill him. Mrs. Qin probably didn't want or dare to accept such a deep love, right? As Su Yiyan said this, she seemed to realize something and asked, "Does Mrs. Qin know about this?" She already knows. Then she's crazy? That's right, Mrs. Qin was crazy. This woman, who finally got a divorce certificate and thought that she could live happily ever after with her lover, suddenly found out the bloody truth and went crazy. She took a knife and stabbed her lover. Then she took the knife and ran to see her other old lover, Qin Fangde's fourth brother, Qin Jinghong. After stabbing the two main culprits, she even drove her car to hit Qin Jinghong's two sons. Su Yiyan was dumbfounded when she heard this. She had guessed that Mrs. Qin would not let these people off easily for the sake of her son. However, she did not expect Mrs. Qin to be so crazy after finding out the truth and kill everyone on her own. He didn't give those people a way out, and he didn't give himself a way out. All dead? Her lover and Qin Jinghong are dead. Of the two sons who were hit by the car, one is in a vegetative state, and the other has a leg amputated. Su Yiyan sucked in a breath of cold air. Then Mrs. Qin, he's dead too. There was an oil leak in the car after the collision. She lit the fire herself. Su Yiyan pursed her lips and said nothing. Hua Qinhuan saw that she couldn't bear it, so she took the initiative to ask, "Do you know who revealed this to Mrs. Qin?" Su Yiyan froze and immediately realized that they must have thought of a backup plan before doing this. Moreover, it had been 2 to 3 years since the incident, so Mrs. Qin couldn't have found out by herself. Who was it? It was Qin Jinghong. Qin Jinghong? Su Yiyan's eyes narrowed. How is that possible? Why would he expose his own shortcomings? Is he crazy? Of course he wouldn't reveal that he was the mastermind. He only accidentally revealed the truth that Mrs. Qin's son's accident was orchestrated by her lover. Chapter 1067. Su Yiyan was even more confused when she heard this. Why would he do that? For revenge. Revenge? Su Yiyan had a flash of inspiration. Because of what happened back then? Back then, Mrs. Qin was forced to break up with her boyfriend. She didn't want to accept the marriage arranged by her family so quickly, so she took the initiative to seduce Qin Jinghong to discuss Qin Fangde. Later, Qin Jinghong failed to seize power. Although he survived, he was paralyzed from then on. Mrs. Qin immediately abandoned him and threw herself into Qin Fangde's arms. Because of this, Any man with a little self-respect would never forget the humiliation this woman brought to him. It wasn't strange that Qin Jinghong would do something like this. Su Yiyin pursed her lips. Karma was a circle and retribution was not good. Mrs. Qin probably never thought that she would taste the bitter fruit of her actions back then more than 20 years later. Since Qin Jinghong pushed that lover out, he must be confident that this matter wouldn't implicate him. Then why did Mrs. Qin still? Have you heard of this saying? What? The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Huo Chenhuan pinched his wife's confused little face and said with a smile, Qin Jinghong was the one who pushed her lover. Qin Jinghong, on the other hand, was pushed out by Ning Xiyuan. Su Yiyin's eyes widened. You mean, that's why I said that guy was an old fox in sheep's clothing. He knew everything and didn't do anything on the surface. He only pushed them when necessary and let them kill each other. Su Yiyin breathed a sigh of relief when she figured out the true identity of the person behind this. This means that he did put in a lot of effort. But Su Yiyin frowned. Did Mrs. Qin do something to Xiaoqi? That day, out of caution, she even reminded Ling Xiaoqi that she and Ning Xiyuan not only had their eyes on Qin Fengde, but also had to be wary of Mrs. Qin. Now that Ning Xiyuan was treating her so harshly, it was most likely because Ling Xiaoqi had gone back and told him what she had found out. That was why he was so ruthless to her. As the saying goes, killing a person's heart. Giving a person who had been pushed to the brink of despair when they thought that they could finally throw away the past and start anew was crueler than letting them despair from the beginning. Su Yiyin should have felt sympathy for her, but when she thought of Ling Xiaoqi's miserable ending in her previous life, she felt that sympathy was a luxury. She had been wrong from the very beginning, and it was a huge mistake for her to involve innocent people in this mess. Now that she had ended up like this, it was the price she had to pay for making so many mistakes. She couldn't blame anyone else. The battle between the sandpiper and the clam came to an end just like that under Ning Xiyuan's careful planning. The only winners were Ning Xiyuan, the fisherman who had been hiding until the very end, and Ling Xiaoqi, who had never been involved in this matter. Su Yiyin finally noticed what was going on at Dou Tiany's side after watching the Qin family's drama for a few days. The person in charge of the Dou Corporation suddenly fell ill and was hospitalized for emergency treatment. The corporation is leaderless and its stock price plummeted? Su Yiyin's first reaction when she saw the news was that it was impossible. Dou Tiany's condition shouldn't have deteriorated so quickly. Moreover, he was clearly the male lead of this world. It's true. The sudden voice behind her startled Su Yiyin. She turned around and realized that it was Huo Chenhuan. It's true? Yeah, Dou Tiany was hospitalized a week ago and hasn't been out since. Does he not want to come out or can't come out? Chapter 1068. He can't get out. Huo Chenhuan handed a medical report to Su Yiyin. His condition has deteriorated, and he needs to wear all kinds of auxiliary treatment equipment for a long time. He will die in less than 3 hours after taking off these equipment. Su Yiyin took the report and looked surprised. How can it deteriorate so quickly? Can he really live to 30 years old in his current condition? Holding the report in his hand, Su Yiyin quickly noticed that something was wrong. How could Huo Chenhuan have Dou Tiany's medical report? Considering the recent situation of the Dou family's company, Su Yiyin suddenly looked up at Huo Chenhuan and asked tentatively, "Did you do the Dou family's business?" "Was me." "When did it happen? What did you do?" Huo Chenhuan looked into Su Yiyin's bright eyes and didn't hide anything. "Quite early." The first time Huo Chenhuan noticed this guy was when the other party started investigating Su Yiyin. At that time, Huo Chenhuan only gave the other party a small warning and destroyed part of their company's business as a warning. Who knew that this person didn't restrain himself, but became more aggressive and dared to attack Su Yiyin in public. This really angered Huo Chenhuan and made him serious about attacking Dou Tiany's company. I asked someone to contact Dou Tiany's aunt. Not long after Dou Tiany sent people to arrest Su Yiyin. Dou Tiany's aunt? He has an aunt. Didn't you say that most of his family members are already? His aunt got married a long time ago. When the Dou family was in chaos, it didn't affect her much. I see. Su Yiyin suddenly understood. Then you contacted her. Is it useful? There are few people left in the Dou family. Now there are even fewer people who still have shares in the company and have a certain right to speak. She happens to be one of them. Moreover, it wasn't as if she didn't have any thoughts of seizing power. I just gave her a chance and something to rely on. You want them to kill each other and then buy Dou Tiany's company? I'm not interested in that company. Hua Chenhuan hesitated for a moment and decided to be honest with Su Yiyan. Actually, what happened to Grandpa was related to him. Su Yiyan's hand paused abruptly. What did you say? Grandpa's matter had something to do with him? Is he the one behind Qing Fenglang and Song Yunyuan? Yes. Su Yiyan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. She suddenly recalled the words and threats that Do Channy had said to her over the phone. So, it wasn't that he didn't do anything, but that she didn't realize it. How dare he, how dare he? Su Yiyan was so angry that her whole body trembled. She wished she could run to the hospital right now and beat the half-dead person up. Hua Chenhuan sighed and reached out to pull her into his arms. He comforted her. It's okay. He won't have the chance to hurt you and your family again. Okay. Su Yiyan responded and began to ask the system in her mind. System, if Do Channy dies now, will the progress of snatching the Goldfinger be full? Will this world still collapse? In theory, the existence of the world's male lead has a great impact on the world's female lead halo. However, because the original novels are mostly based on the female lead's vision, and the host's partner are already more than 3/4 of the way to snatch the Goldfinger, the death of the world's male lead won't cause the world to collapse for the time being. In other words, Do Channy's early death wouldn't cause the world to collapse. Instead, it would increase the progress of snatching the Goldfinger by a large margin. It might even be full. Chapter 1069. Realizing this, Su Yiyan subconsciously tightened her arms around Hua Chenhuan's waist. Hua Chenhuan immediately felt it. He lowered his head and asked, "Are you still worried?" Su Yiyan shook her head and smiled at him as if relieved of a heavy burden. "I just suddenly realized that some things may end early." Hua Chenhuan raised his eyebrows. He intuitively felt that Su Yiyan's words had a hidden meaning, but since she didn't say it clearly, he didn't ask further. Su Yiyan was so angry that she had already sharpened her knife to attack the male lead. At that time, Wen Jingping was still unaware that she was about to lose her last bargaining chip. After losing Yin Jihong's support and being chased out of the crew, Wen Jingping was like a rat crossing the street. Wherever she went, people would look at her with strange eyes. Wherever she went, there would be all kinds of people who she didn't know at all who took the initiative to run up to her and mock her and make things difficult for her. After a few times she didn't even dare to go out. She could only hide in the rented room alone, feeling as if she had been abandoned by the whole world. When Jingping prayed countless times that God would send the next hero to save her from this difficult situation. However, God obviously didn't hear her prayers. Or rather, God didn't intend to open the back door for her. When Jingping closed the door and hid for a few days, she didn't wait for her hero, but waited for Ding Juesi, who was haunting her. "Xiaoping, I'm here to find you. How have you been during this time? Did anyone bully you? I've heard about what happened to the crew. They actually treated you like this when I wasn't around. Don't worry, I'll help you vent your anger." Ding Juesi squeezed through the door excitedly. He didn't notice Wen Jingping's frightened expression as if she had seen a ghost. Wen Jingping didn't expect that he would come to find her. While she was in a daze, Ding Juesi had already squeezed through the small gap in the door. Wen Jingping couldn't shut him out anymore. Ding Juesi entered the rented house as if he had entered his own home. He didn't know how to be polite at all. "You." Wen Jingping followed behind him with a stiff face. Just as she was about to say something, Ding Juesi suddenly turned around and hugged her. Wen Jingping was shocked. She struggled to move back, but Ding Juesi held her so tightly that she didn't have a chance to resist. "I'm divorced." These short words caused Wen Jingping's entire body to stiffen, and she was at a loss for what to do. No one knew better than Wen Jingping why Ding Juesi got a divorce. At this moment she did not feel guilty about this matter. She was only worried. "I'm free now. I'm single," Ding Juesi said as he pulled away from Wen Jingping. He looked into her eyes and said excitedly, "I know that you deliberately kept a distance from me because I still had a family and wasn't single. You were afraid that others would think that you were a bad woman who seduced others maliciously. Now that I'm single, status, money, love, I can give you everything you want. I'm worthy of you. From now on, no one will talk about my previous marriage. We can be together forever. Are you willing to marry me?" What she was afraid of really came true. When Jingping looked at this inexplicably excited man with a pale face, she didn't understand how things had developed to this point. She didn't know how she could get out of this awkward situation and get rid of this sticky candy that she couldn't shake off no matter what. Chapter 1070. Before Wen Jingping could think of an excuse, the sharp mechanical voice sounded first. Warning, warning. The host cannot have a relationship beyond friendship with men other than the male protagonist, especially not have any physical relationship with men other than the male protagonist. Otherwise, you will be severely punished by the system. Otherwise, you will be severely punished by the system. Wen Jingping shuddered and subconsciously pushed Ding Juecy away. Little Ping? Ding Juecy looked at Wen Jingping in confusion and surprise. Wen Jingping pursed her lips and braced herself to say, Brother? Brother Ding, you misunderstood. I never wanted to destroy your family. I just treat you as an older brother. Green Tea Special saying, I only treat you as an older brother. It was even crueler than giving out the good guy card. When Ding Juecy heard her say that, his face went blank for a moment, and then it became distorted. He tried hard to take a few deep breaths before he could barely maintain the calmness on his face. He said stiffly, Are you worried about me and my wife? No, I should say about me and my ex-wife? Don't worry. I've already divorced her and the children belong to her. Now we're minding our own business. She won't come looking for trouble with you. Wen Jingping was a little annoyed when she heard what he said. What does it have to do with me whether you're divorced or not? Why do I have to be with you if you're divorced? Literature on the 19th floor. Even if you're divorced from your ex-wife won't come looking for trouble with me in the future, but those self-proclaimed righteous defenders won't let me off easily. In the eyes of these people, your divorce has something to do with me. If I really get together with you, won't I be the mistress of another family? Although her current reputation wasn't any better, she wasn't a fool. Wouldn't the title of a mistress who hooked up with a married man be the same as pushing her to a dead end? Wen Jingping pulled Ding Juecy's hand away from her arm without a trace. She avoided his gaze and said softly, Brother Ding, you've really misunderstood. I really only treat you as an older brother. Don't be like this. You're scaring me. Ding Juecy's face darkened on the spot. However, looking at her expression, he didn't harden his heart. Instead, he found an excuse for her. You're lying to me, right? Did someone force you? Tell me, I'll protect you. Is it Yin Jihong who forced you to say that? The more Ding Juecy spoke, the more he felt that he had guessed correctly. When he thought of the rumors he had heard after returning to the set, he tightened his grip on Wen Jingping. Did he find trouble with you? Did he threaten you? Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. Wen Jingping was hurt by his grip, and the disgust and impatience in her eyes increased. However, when she saw Ding Juecy's crazily twisted face, she was still terrified. She hurriedly asked the system to exchange the few remaining points for tools to use on Ding Juecy. After making sure that he wouldn't hurt her, she put on a guilty and sad expression and said in a low voice, No one threatened me and no one forced me. What I said is true. I only treat you as an older brother. As for Mr. Yin, Chapter 1071. Ding Juecy was on the verge of collapsing. It took him a long time to recover from the huge shock. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. What did you say? You and him, you. Although Wen Jingping was a little afraid of the person in front of her, she thought that if she did not use this opportunity to make this man give up on her, she might have to face this person's endless pestering in the future. Wen Jingping gritted her teeth and continued the lie. Brother Ding, I'm sorry. I can't lie to you and I can't lie to myself. Feelings aren't something I can control. My feelings for Mr. Yin are really... You're lying to me. Before Wen Jingping could finish speaking, Ding Juecy had already shouted first. He grabbed Wen Jingping's arm. His eyes were red, and it was obvious that he was on the verge of an emotional breakdown. I abandoned my wife and children for you. Now you're telling me that you like someone else. Are you playing with me? Although Wen Jingping was mentally prepared, she was still shocked when Ding Juecy grabbed her arm. Her face turned pale. Brother Ding, calm down first. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? Ding Juecy seemed to have lost control of his emotions. Even the items that Wen Jingping had exchanged for were not working. You want to abandon me and run away with another man and you want me to calm down? How do you want me to calm down? How do you want me to calm down? Wen Jingping was stunned by Ding Juecy's shout. After a while she said in a trembling voice, Don't be agitated. I'm not good enough for you. Don't talk to me about this nonsense. Let me ask you one thing. Are you willing to be with me? Are you willing to marry me? Before she could finish speaking, Ding Juecy took a step forward and forced Wen Jingping to a corner. He threatened in a low voice, I don't care if you're really reserved or pretending to seduce me. It's all thanks to you that I've become like this. It's best if you're willing. If you're not. Wen Jingping's expression changed slightly. She was afraid that he would really do something to her, so she subconsciously asked the system for help. System, what should I do? He seems to have gone crazy. Will he attack me? I'm alone now. If we really fight, I won't be able to beat him. What should I do? Think of a way to save me. The favorable impression points collected by the host during this period of time are too low. You are unable to exchange them for supplementary items. Please think of a way to get out of this predicament. To sum it up, if you want me to help you without any benefits, you'll have to pray for yourself. Wen Jingping was so angry that she ground her teeth. If not for the fact that the timing was not right, she would have cursed on the spot. In the end, Wen Jingping admitted defeat when she met Ding Juexi's cold and stern gaze. She lowered her head slightly and said softly, "It's my blessing that Brother Ding is willing to be with me. I'm just worried that they will misunderstand Brother Ding because of me and get you scolded." Ding Juexi's expression finally improved when he heard her words. He coaxed her in a low voice, "No, they will only envy me and be jealous of me. Even if you're unhappy, you won't dare to say anything in front of me. You don't have to mind it at all." Okay. Wen Jingping lowered her eyes to hide the annoyance and impatience in her eyes. Initially, she thought that she could buy some time by admitting defeat so that she could think of a better way to get rid of this person. However, she did not expect that after Ding Juexi comforted her, his hands would start to touch her waist dishonestly. Chapter 1072. Wen Jingping was shocked. She instantly understood what he wanted to do and she felt terrible. As if to further confirm her guess before she could think of a reason, the sharp mechanical voice sounded again. "Warning, warning. It has been detected that the male supporting character, Ding Juexi, who has already conquered the male supporting character, has thoughts of crossing the line with the host. Host, please think of a way to stay away from the male supporting character as soon as possible to avoid irreversible consequences." Wen Jingping bit her lip. It was easy for him to say. If she could run away, she would have done so long ago. Why would she wait until now to pretend to be a snake with this disgusting man? Little Ping. Ding Juexi did not notice the pure disgust in Wen Jingping's eyes. He lowered his head and moved closer to Wen Jingping's ear. His breath landed on the side of her neck. His rapid and hot breath gave Wen Jingping goosebumps all over her body. Wen Jingping understood that she could not avoid the situation at this point. She also knew that if she did not take action, something irreversible might really happen. She was completely forced into a dead end. She gritted her teeth and screamed, "Brother Ding, behind you!" Ding Juexi was stunned. He instinctively looked behind him. Wen Jingping seized the opportunity when he was distracted. She used all her strength to push him forward. Ding Juexi was completely unprepared for her to do this. He staggered a few steps back and almost fell. When he finally stabilized himself, Wen Jingping had already taken the opportunity to rush to the half-closed door. When Ding Juexi squeezed himself into the room, Wen Jingping was already a little scared. She was worried that he would force himself on her, so she did not close the door tightly. However, before a person encountered the worst thing, they would always have a little bit of hope in their hearts. Wen Jingping was the same. However, Ding Juexi's actions after entering the room had undoubtedly smashed Wen Jingping's little bit of hope into pieces. She did not expect Ding Juexi to be as obedient and selfless to her as before. She only wanted to cut ties with this person as soon as possible and have no contact with him. Wen Jingping had just opened the iron door when Ding Juexi reacted. He quickly rushed to her, grabbed her hair and pulled her back. Wen Jingping had just taken a step out of the door when he pulled her back. It was so painful that she almost cried. Seeing that she was about to be pulled back into the room, she quickly grabbed the iron door at the side with both hands. She struggled and screamed, "Help! Murder! Help! Someone! Help! Help! Help!" The house that Wen Jingping's rented was especially remote and simple and crude. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if you farted in the house, the people next door would be able to hear it. Now that she was shouting at the top of her lungs, almost everyone in the building could hear her. For a moment, the surprised, curious tenants all opened their doors and looked in their direction. Wen Jingping's eyes lit up when she saw this. She shouted even more energetically. "Save me! Save me! This man wants to kill me. He wants to harm me." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Ding Juexi's face was livid. He glanced at the few men who were eager to come over and take a look. He said coldly, "My girlfriend is quarreling with me because of some things. Please don't meddle in other people's business." The few men who had wanted to save Wen Jingping when they saw her crying like a pear blossom in the rain stopped in their tracks when they heard this. They looked at each other and did not go forward. Wen Jingping panicked when she saw this. "No, don't listen to his nonsense. I'm not his girlfriend. He's lying. He wants to force himself on me and humiliate me. You can't leave me in the lurch. Save me, please save me." Chapter 1073. Perhaps it was because Wen Jingping's appearance was too miserable, or perhaps it was because her cries for help were too shrill. It was easy for people to sympathize with the weaker party. They originally thought that this was a matter between the two of them and that it was inconvenient for them to interfere. However, after her wailing, they couldn't help but feel some compassion. Could it be that the man is really lying? How can a relationship between a couple end up like this? That's not necessarily true. You have a good temper, but you don't know how fierce a person with a bad temper can be. Previously, my relative had a friend who was like this. He was unreasonable at home and bowed to others outside. When he returned home, he hit his wife. He hit her until every part of her body was intact. It was terrible. Yes. I have a classmate who married a man who was also like this. He didn't have any ability and liked to gamble. If he encountered something outside that didn't go his way, he would hit his wife when he returned home. It's so scary. So it's really possible that they're a couple? Then why don't we just ignore it? You're wrong. Even if they're a couple, they can't hit each other like this. What if someone dies? I've already called the police. If they're a couple, we'll let the police help mediate. If they're not, we'll just treat it as getting rid of evil for the people. You're so thoughtful. That's what we should do. Ding Juesi listened to the mutterings of the people around him and felt that something bad was going to happen. His face darkened slightly, and he used more strength to pull her back into the house. Little did he know that in the eyes of the crowd, his actions looked like he had a guilty conscience and wanted to destroy the corpse before the police arrived. What are you doing? Let go of her. The men who had wanted to help earlier didn't care about anything else when they saw this. They swarmed forward, wanting to save Wen Jingping. Ding Juesi's eyes turned red when he saw them approaching. He suddenly grabbed Wen Jingping's head and slammed it against the door. In his opinion, these men were all attracted by Wen Jingping's pitiful appearance. She was the original sin. Wen Jingping didn't expect him to be so ruthless. Furthermore, she was hugging the door frame tightly and didn't have the strength to fight back. After being hit like this, her head buzzed and she almost fainted on the spot. Her hands that were holding onto the door frame also loosened. Fortunately, at this time, a few men had already rushed over and subdued Ding Juesi. Although Wen Jingping was dizzy, at least she was not dragged away by him. There were even a few kind women who came over to support her and comfort her. Ding Juesi was obviously unwilling to sit still and wait for death. When he saw the women helping Wen Jingping away, he wanted to rush over and pull her back. He struggled so hard that the women almost couldn't hold him down. Wen Jingping had just recovered a little when she saw Ding Juesi's terrifying expression that seemed to want to kill her. She immediately shrank back in fear. Her pitiful appearance aroused the pity of the people around her, but there were also some people who couldn't stand her pitiful appearance. They gathered together and whispered, discussing the identity of Wen Jingping and Xiao Luo. Why do I feel that this man and woman look familiar? Where have I seen them before? Now that you mention it, I also feel like I've seen them somewhere before. Could it be that they're celebrities? 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 I remember who they are. Previously, I saw that celebrity cheating on a mistress from the same crew. It was quite a big deal. When Wen Jingping and the furious Ding Juesi heard this, they froze at the same time. Chapter 1074. Although Ding Juesi was a mess now, some habits were not so easy to change. He had put on a disguise before he came, but after the struggle just now, the disguise was almost removed. Moreover, he did not expect that someone in such a remote place would be able to recognize him. For a moment he did not know whether to be happy or cry. Sometimes, it only took a moment to go from sympathy to disgust and rejection. After Ding Juesi was recognized, he received a wave of people pointing at him and looking at him with disgust. However, what was gratifying was that Wen Jingping's situation was not much better than his. It's really him? No wonder I thought he looked so familiar just now. Some time ago my daughter complained to me because of him. Men these days all look like dogs, but behind their backs they do all kinds of things. Isn't that right? It's said that his wife's family is very rich and she's beautiful. She even gave birth to a son and a daughter for him. A son and a daughter make up the word good, but he's still fooling around outside. You say these dog men are really too much. Their wives are beautiful and capable, they have both children and their families are harmonious. Why can't they think about it and look for women outside? Who knows? There are always so many reasons for men to cheat. To put it bluntly, it's nothing more than living a stable life for a long time and wanting some excitement. After seeing his wife for a long time, he wants to change his taste. It's best if it's someone young and beautiful, who's completely different from his wife's personality. Young and beautiful? Sai, do you think this woman could be the mistress? As they talked, the topic inevitably turned to Wen Jingping. Wen Jingping's expression changed slightly, and she suddenly had an ominous premonition. Sure enough, in the next second she saw a few people take out their phones and search in front of her. Wen Jingping was considered an insider, and a lousy drama with her as the protagonist had just been broadcasted not long ago. They could still find relevant information if they searched carefully. *CK, it's really her. After all this time, it turns out that she's a mistress who destroys other people's families. No wonder I always saw her wearing a mask sneaking around when I took the children out to play or to buy groceries. Occasionally, I could see a few young girls arguing with her and pointing at her. At that time I sympathized with her. I thought she had offended someone and was being targeted. Now it seems that he has done something shameful. He deserves to be ridiculed. Ugh, you're clearly a pair of adulterers, yet you were still saying pitifully that you didn't know them. What a waste of my sympathy. Isn't it? In the past she might have flirted and seduced him. Now that she saw that he was broke, she acted like a chaste and virtuous woman. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have called the police. What the hell? Wen Jingping listened to the mockery of the people around her, and her face turned as white as a sheet of paper. What was even more despairing was that the men who had restrained Ding Juecy and prevented him from moving around also found out about the identities of the two people. The situation became awkward. He thought he was enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens, but he realized that the person he was helping wasn't a good person either. What was even worse was that this woman was a homewrecker. They didn't even need to raise their heads to feel the death stare from their wives. What should they do? Should they continue to hold him down or let him go? They felt that it was embarrassing to let him go like this, but if they didn't let him go, they would definitely be questioned if they were charmed by this woman when they returned. They would have to face another family war. Chapter 1075. Between a husband and wife battle and losing face, the few of them rationally chose the latter. They looked at each other and released Ding Juecy at the same time. Wen Jingping's face turned pale when she saw this scene. She struggled to get up and wanted to run, but she realized that there was nowhere for her to run. Fortunately, the previous call to the police was still very useful. Ding Juecy had just regained his freedom, and before he could do anything to Wen Jingping, the police arrived. After a brief understanding of the situation, the two of them were taken away. Wen Jingping was relieved when she was taken away. Whether it was an affair or a mistress, it was all a moral issue. However, Ding Juecy had made a move on her and even tried to force her. In a way, it was already illegal. With so many people around, he wouldn't have the chance to make a move on her. That was indeed the case. After Wen Jingping finished her statement at the police station, she left first. Ding Juecy, on the other hand, was temporarily detained for trespassing, injuring people, and intending to commit indecent acts on the victim. If no one came to bail him out, he would probably have to stay in jail for a while. Wen Jingping heaved a sigh of relief when she came out, but she didn't let her guard down. She knew very well that after today she and Ding Juecy would completely fall out. It was fine if Ding Juecy couldn't come out, but once he came out he would definitely find trouble with her. Although he was in a mess now, he could still kill Wen Jingping. What should I do now? Your props are no longer effective against him. When he comes out, he will definitely think of a way to kill me or even get someone to humiliate me. I can't just sit and wait for death. I definitely can't just sit and wait for death. The system saw that she was flustered and kindly reminded her. The only way for the host now is to find yourself a backer. A backer who is more powerful than Ding Juecy and can protect the host from him. That's easy for you to say. Do you think I haven't thought about it? But how can you find a backer just because you want to? I can't count on Yin Jihong anymore. Where do you want me to find a backer that I can rely on now? Isn't there a ready-made one in front of you? Wen Jingping narrowed her eyes and asked excitedly, "Who is it?" "The world's male lead." "Who are you talking about? Do Tianyi?" "That's right." Wen Jingping's expression changed slightly. "Are you messing with me? You know that after testing, the world's male lead's condition worsened in advance half a month ago. The host can take advantage of this opportunity to gain a wave of favorability. Otherwise, once the world's male lead dies of illness." Before the system could finish, Wen Jingping's eyes lit up and she said excitedly, "What will happen? Will I be assigned a new male lead?" "I won't. The world's male lead has passed away due to illness. The host's female lead halo will completely disappear, and she will be reduced to cannon fodder under the foundation of the world. Please consider carefully." When Wen Jingping heard that Do Tianyi had died of illness and that she would be reduced to cannon fodder, just like herself in her previous life, her face turned pale. "No, I can't repeat the mistakes of my previous life. I don't want to be cannon fodder." "You want me to find Do Tianyi? Is it because there's a way to treat him?" The host can alleviate the world's male lead's condition through the item bonus in the exchange system. It was only alleviating, not curing. This was a huge loophole in the language, but Wen Jingping couldn't care less now. She could not care so much anymore. She urgently needed a life-saving straw, and this straw was most likely Do Tianyi. Chapter 1076. Su Yiyin would never have thought that after such a twist of fate, Wen Jingping would still be sent back to Do Tianyi's side. After the scar removal ointment in the medicinal cuisine house became famous in the entertainment industry, investors came to the door one after another, wanting to cooperate with them. In addition, more and more people wanted to dig out the owner of this restaurant with different purposes. If it weren't for Yu Zian and the others, Su Yiyin's identity would have been uncovered long ago. Huo Chenhuan did not hide this matter from Su Yiyin. Su Yiyin also felt strange after learning about it. Why are there so many people suddenly? It should be the patients you treated before. The patients I treated before? Su Yiyin was startled. Only then did she remember that the people she treated before did come back with good news one after another. Ning Chirue had completely recovered. In the past 6 months he had been doing both variety shows and acting, and his resources were quite amazing. The elderly couple who were unable to have children, introduced by her uncle and aunt, finally got pregnant with their own child a year ago after recuperating for a while. Although the woman inevitably suffered a lot during the pregnancy process, the final result was worth it. A few months ago the couple's daughter was born. Now the family of 3 was living a simple but warm life in their hometown. In addition, old Master Jiang, who had helped Huo Chenhuan take back the Huo Corporation from Huo Qihan's hands, came to visit in person a few days ago with Jiang Qingrun, who could finally walk upright, and his little grandson. Old Master Jiang, who had been cured of his illness, was in particularly good spirits. He was also very generous. When he came, he brought a lot of rare antiques and expensive gifts. Su Yiyin was a little embarrassed to accept it, but if she didn't accept it, the old man would be angry with her. In the end, she could only give the 2 of them a few more bags of medicine to nourish their bodies and let them take them back to stew soup for themselves. Then there was Li Xingnan's burn this time. Everyone is afraid of death. The richer they are, the more afraid they are of death because they have too many things. On the contrary, for those who struggled at the bottom of society, who did not have enough to eat or even carried huge debts, and who were crushed by life bit by bit, death was sometimes a luxurious relief. Once you have too many things, you won't be willing to die. Just like him in the past, he had lost too much and had once thought of dying. However, when he obtained something that was originally out of his reach and obtained the stable and happy life he had now, the word death no longer appeared in his future plans. But fate is fair in some ways. It won't make you immortal just because you're rich, and it won't make you die suddenly just because you're too poor. It's just that after seeing the beauty of life, some people are always unwilling to submit to fate. When the accumulation of wealth reached a certain level, people's pursuit would change. They would begin to pursue other things such as health, longevity, but many times they would find that these things could not be bought with money. If the king of hell wanted you to die at midnight, he would never let you live past midnight. Even if you were worth billions in the face of disease, this money might not be able to buy you an extra day or an extra hour. At this time, the people who could help them snatch lives from the hands of the Grim Reaper undoubtedly became the focus of everyone's attention. Su Yiyin met Huo Chenhuan's gaze and immediately saw through his inner thoughts. Are you worried? Chapter 1077. Hua Chenhuan took a deep look at Su Yiyan, his eyes full of complex emotions. He was indeed worried, not that he couldn't protect her, but that Su Yiyan's heart would soften. Life and death were things that tested human nature the most. No one could guarantee that those who were at the end of their rope would do anything to cure their illness or even survive. When that time came, some people wouldn't care about your ability or whether you really couldn't do anything about their illness. If they couldn't cure you, they would drag you down with them. At least there would be someone to accompany them on the road to the netherworld. Su Yiyan could probably guess what he was worried about and comforted him in turn. Actually, I've thought about this before. Some things are more hidden, the more curious people will be and dig deeper. Being open about it can save a lot of trouble. In the past 2 years, Su Yiyan had gradually exchanged all the Chinese medicinal herbs that he could exchange for and handed them over to the research institute and the company under him for safekeeping and planting. Previously, the pharmaceutical cram school at a university was held once or twice a week. Other than the period when she was pregnant, which was why she didn't continue to attend classes because her body was heavy. It turned out that these highly educated intellectuals with real talent were much more powerful than Su Yiyan, who had become a half-baked person with a cheat code. In the beginning, these people were still ignorant and were more curious than serious about the things that Su Yiyan said. Later, these people gradually realized the value of these things, and also understood why Yi Qiliang and the others were so excited and lost their composure. Many people's mentality also changed. They no longer looked at the lessons with a novel perspective, but they really wanted to absorb the knowledge and use it to help those who really needed help. Now, many people in the class could draw inferences from Su Yiyan's lessons. Occasionally, the questions that they raised could stop Su Yiyan. In another 1 or 2 years, Su Yiyan probably wouldn't have anything to teach them. He just needed to throw the books in front of them and they would know how to learn by themselves. I have good things in my hands. Those who want to ask me for help know this, the people in the research institute know this, and the higher-ups know even more. Because of this, they won't let me get hurt. An ordinary man was innocent, but treasuring a jade ring would arouse the envy of others. This was indeed an unchanging truth. However, this kind of situation usually only happened when the person with the jade ring had not truly grown up. If this had happened when she had just started streaming, Su Yiyan might have been a little worried, but now, instead of worrying about this, why don't you think about what gift you should give to please your mother-in-law on her birthday in 2 days? It was indeed Qing Xiuqing's birthday in 2 days, but it wasn't on the same date. Moreover, the Qing family had just had an accident. Although it was scary but not dangerous, everyone still had some lingering fears in their hearts, so they weren't in the mood to celebrate. Mr. Su was thinking about asking Su Yiyan to bring her husband and children home for a meal on his wife's birthday. That way the whole family would be safe and reunited. This was more valuable than any gift. As expected, Hua Chenhuan's attention was diverted. Her eyes flashed slightly and she asked with a smile, "Then what do you think I should give to my mother-in-law to please her?" Su Yiyan raised his eyebrows and pretended to be reserved. "You're asking me your own problem? You're your mother-in-law's most beloved daughter. Naturally, you know her best. When it comes to giving a gift, whether it's expensive or not is one thing. It has to be delivered to her heart. In our family, you're the one who knows what your mother-in-law likes the most." Chapter 1078. That's true. Su Yiyan's lips curled up slightly as she nodded in agreement. Then she heard Hua Chenhuan say, "It's just that it's not a good idea to give a gift that stands out too much. What if your father and brother think that I'm stealing their limelight and being too insensible? Wouldn't the loss outweigh the gain?" Su Yiyan choked, but she quickly calmed down. She snorted coldly and said, "So, it's useless for you to ask me to cheat for you. It's true that I know my mother, but my father and brother also know her well. They've already thought of all the gifts you can think of. They won't give you a chance to show off at all. You'd better think of another way." "What you said makes sense. This is going to be difficult." Su Yiyan saw that Hua Chenhuan seemed to be really stumped. She rolled her eyes and laughed. "I know a gift that only you can give. My mother will definitely like it." "What is it?" "Your mother likes Xingxing so much. She must like children very much. Let's give them a grandson or granddaughter. She will definitely like this gift." Hua Chenhuan was stunned. She subconsciously glanced at Su Yiyan and said meaningfully, "You want to give me a child that much?" Su Yiyan blushed and said angrily, "It's not for you. I'm just worried that the baby will be too lonely. I want to give birth to another baby to accompany him." Although she knew that Su Yiyan was just being stubborn, Hua Chenhuan couldn't help but feel a little jealous. "Feels like I'm just a tool." Su Yiyin immediately heard the sourness in someone's voice. She blushed and muttered softly, "What's wrong with being a tool? You're not happy to be a tool?" As soon as she finished speaking, Su Yiyin felt as if she was lifted into the air. She was so scared that she subconsciously hugged Hua Chenhuan's neck. "What are you doing?" "Of course, I'm using my actions to show someone that I'm happy to be a tool." After saying that, Hua Chenhuan happily carried Su Yiyin into the house and did not come out until dinner time. On Cheng Xiuqing's birthday, Su Yiyin woke up early in the morning. She personally helped her little guy put on a fluffy panda jumpsuit and taught him to call out, "Grandma," a few times. "Grandma, come, recite after mommy." "Grandma," "Crooked Pop." Although the little guy already knew how to call people, most of the words he called were still repeated like father and mother. The word, grandmother, was still a bit difficult for him. Su Yiyin was not in a hurry. Along the way, he patiently repeated these two words to the little fellow. What was rare was that the little fellow didn't find her noisy either. Whenever Su Yiyin repeated herself, he would repeat the same thing. Coupled with his panda jumpsuit, he looked really cute and adorable. Fortunately, hard work paid off. The two of them practiced for a long time in the back seat of the car, and the little guy finally shouted properly. Su Yiyin was happy. She picked up the child and gave him a big kiss, which made the child giggle. "Baby, you're so awesome. Remember to call Grandma when you see her later. Grandma will be very happy to hear you call her." Hua Chenhuan glanced at his wife and son, who were all smiles. He mischievously reached out and pinched his son's chubby cheeks. He pinched his son's little mouth, making him look cute and pitiful at the same time. "It took you so long to learn. You're so stupid." After that, he pinched his son's little face a few more times before letting go. The little fellow was unexpectedly pinched and ridiculed. As soon as he was free, he hurriedly got into his mother's arms and blew a bubble at his unreliable scumbag father. 2-8, bad. Chapter 1079. As soon as he spoke, the adults in the car were all stunned. Su Yiyin was the first to react. She chuckled and said, "Little guy, you can even tell good from bad. I don't know who you got your intelligence from." The little guy seemed to have heard that his mother was praising him. He was happy and aggrieved. He hugged Su Yiyin's neck tightly and sniffled miserably. He looked miserable and said, "I was bullied. Mom, please seek justice for me." When Su Yiyin saw him like this, her heart softened. She looked up at Hua Chenhuan and said with anger and amusement, "See, the little guy is sensible now. He knows who is good and who is bad. Don't bully him in the future. Otherwise when he grows up he will bully you." "How dare he?" Hua Chenhuan narrowed his eyes dangerously. He looked like a strict father who was ready to teach the naughty child a lesson at any time. If it were his company's employees, their legs would have turned to jelly when they saw his expression change. The little guy was a newborn calf, but he was not afraid at all. Perhaps he heard that his unreliable father was questioning his future ability. The little guy puffed up his cheeks and stared back at him with a serious face. The two similar faces stared at each other with the same expression. Neither of them was willing to bow down to the other. The atmosphere in the car was a little strange for a moment. Su Yiyin looked at the older one and then looked at the younger one in her arms. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. Okay. I really have to hand it to you two. Both father and son have the same bad temper. Do you still want to fight at home in the future?" The father and son who were suddenly labeled as bad-tempered. "No, we don't. Don't talk nonsense." An internal family war disappeared under Su Yiyin's meaningful half-threat. Gu Xiaoyang, who was driving in front, looked at the magical situation and smiled slightly. He secretly thought, why else would you say that a person's family status can be seen from his tone of voice and daily behavior? Their young master and little young master were definitely at the top of the food chain at home. Only young madam was a legend at the top of the food chain. Su Yiyin did not notice the strange behavior of the people in the front row. After giving the father and son who were vying for her favor a gentle warning, she put her mind back on Cheng Xiuqing's birthday. Half an hour later, the family of three arrived at the Su residence. Su Yiyin's father and a few others were already waiting at the entrance when they received the call. When they saw Su Yiyin carrying the child down the stairs, they immediately rushed up and snatched the child away from her. That's right, it was robbery. Cheng Xiuqing took advantage of the fact that it was his birthday today to snatch away his precious grandson, intending to monopolize him for the whole day. The little guy didn't disappoint his mother's expectations. As soon as he was carried by Cheng Xiuqing, he obediently shouted, Why? Cheng Xiuqin didn't realize what he was saying at first. It wasn't until the little guy shouted a second time that he realized that he was calling Grandma. His eyes lit up and he said happily, "Grandma, he's calling Grandma. Grandma's little sweetheart knows how to call Grandma. Look, our little Xingxing knows how to call Grandma. He's so smart." While showing off, Cheng Xiuqin excitedly gave the baby one kiss after another. On the other hand, Mr. Su and Brother Su were so jealous that they turned into lemons. It was bad enough that they didn't get to hold their little grandson, little nephew, but they also had to face this enviable show-off. So what if he was the birthday girl? Why didn't they think of doing this on their birthday? Now that they thought about it, they had missed out on 100 million yuan. Chapter 1080. The father and son were jealous and regretful. On the other side, Su Yiyan was also a little jealous. Clearly before this I was their most beloved child. Now that a younger child has appeared, I have become the child that no one wants. Huo Chenhuan was amused by Su Yiyan's sad aria. She reached out and pinched her nose, saying, "It's okay. They don't want you, but I want you. In my place you will always be the most beautiful child." Su Yuxuan, who was standing on the side, heard the two's words and felt goosebumps all over her body. She couldn't understand how the man who looked so gloomy and cold in the past had become so lovey-dovey after marriage. Sure enough, people in love were all unsightly. The two elders were busy playing with the child, so they didn't pay much attention to the two's movements. After entering the door, Su Yiyan ran straight to the small kitchen, ready to personally cook a table full of dishes for Cheng Xiuqin. Although the cook at home also knew how to cook, Su Yiyan still wanted to show her filial piety on such a rare day. Huo Chenhuan followed closely behind, followed by another big tail. "Brother, why are you here?" Su Yiyan looked at Su Yuxuan, who followed Huo Chenhuan into the kitchen with a blank face. Su Yuxuan touched his nose. Of course, he couldn't directly say that he came to find them to relieve his boredom because he couldn't compete with the two elders. "I saw that you were about to enter the kitchen, so I wanted to see if there was anything I could help with. I don't have anything to do here. Huo Chenhuan alone is enough to help. Brother, you should go back to the living room to accompany Mom and Dad." Su Yuxuan originally just wanted to come over to make up the numbers. Now that he was chased away by his sister, he became enthusiastic. There is strength in numbers. One more person will be more efficient. We can also eat earlier, right? Are you sure you're here to help and not to cause trouble? Su Yiyan looked suspiciously at her inexplicably warm-hearted brother. Then, as if she had thought of something, she smiled and said, "There's really no need. There's only so much space in the kitchen. With so many people walking around, it's not crowded at all." Su Yuxuan silently glanced at the large kitchen that could accommodate 5 or 6 people and still have room to spare. He felt that he needed to give it a proper name. Unfortunately, before he could say anything, Su Yiyan added, "Brother, if you want to be a helper, you should bring a sister-in-law home earlier. When sister-in-law cooks, you can help her by the side. You can stay in the kitchen for as long as you like. I'm sure no one will disturb you." Su Yuxuan? Why do these words sound so wrong to me? Before he could think of a reason, Su Yiyan had already brought Huo Chenhuan into the small kitchen. Su Yuxuan stood alone at the kitchen door for a long time before he realized that his sister was displeased with him for disturbing the couple's private time. She even wanted him to bring a girlfriend who could cook to help her? Did she really think that girls who could cook like her and were especially good at it were everywhere these days? How infuriating. So what if she had a husband? His cute and obedient sister was clearly not like this in the past. It must be that dog of a man inside who had led her astray. Achoo. Huo Chenhuan's nose itched and she couldn't help but sneeze. What's wrong? Su Yiyan saw this and immediately came over nervously. Did you catch a cold? Huo Chenhuan grabbed Su Yiyan's hand that was about to touch her forehead. With a smile in her eyes, she glanced at the door meaningfully and said, "Someone is probably cursing me in their mind." Chapter 1081. Su Yiyan immediately knew who he was talking about when he saw the look in his eyes. He chuckled and said, "Who told you to take his only sister? You deserve to be scolded." Huo Chenhuan could tell what Su Yiyan was thinking. She felt helpless and amused. Aren't you afraid that your brother will find an opportunity to put a gunny sack on me in a moment of anger? You take the car everywhere you go. How would he have the opportunity to put a gunny sack on you? Is that the point? Isn't it? Huo Chenhuan lowered her head and stared at Su Yiyan for a while. In the end she couldn't dissuade her little wife. She smiled faintly and said, yes. Only then was Su Yiyan satisfied and focused on preparing the ingredients to be used today. Because it was a family, Su Yiyan didn't plan to cook too many rare and time-consuming dishes. Other than the cake and longevity noodles, which were indispensable birthday foods, most of the dishes were home-cooked dishes that leaned toward Qing Xiuqin's taste. The family gathered together and had a good meal. It was no different from every weekend when Huo Chenhuan would accompany Su Yiyan back to the Su family to eat with her parents. However, after the meal there was an additional cake dessert. Wait. Su Yiyan stopped Qing Xiuqin from preparing to cut the cake and reminded him with a smile, Mom, you haven't made a wish yet. Make a wish? Qing Xiuqin was slightly startled, but then he couldn't help but laugh. I'm not like you young people. Why do you need to make these fancy things? What does this have to do with whether I'm young or not? Mom, don't tell me that you have no desires at your age and don't have any wishes? Yan Yan is right. Su Yuxuan also echoed, Mom, this has nothing to do with your age. You're the birthday girl today. You're the oldest. As long as it's your wish, it will definitely come true. As soon as he said that, Qing Xiuqin suddenly turned to look at Su Yuxuan, which made his hair stand. Am I wrong? Mom, why are you looking at me like that? It's nothing. It's just that what you said just now reminded me that I do have a wish right now. What? Everyone's attention was instantly focused. Qing Xiuqin's gaze swept over each of them one by one before he smiled faintly and said, there are still too few people in our family. I won't talk about Yan Yan, but at least he's married and has my precious grandson. It would be great if she could have more children in the future, but if she didn't, she wouldn't force it. You, on the other hand, are a few years older than Yan Yan. It's time for you to settle down and find someone. It was no wonder that Qing Xiuqin was so worried. Su Yuxuan's first love was so heart-wrenching that Qing Xiuqin's mother was worried that he was afraid of girls for a long time. It wasn't easy to persuade him to put down his work and work hard on blind dates, but the people he met were all weirdos. Not only did they fail to awaken his heart that longed for love, but they also made him reject the word blind dates. Now, seeing that Su Yiyan's family was happy, while Su Yuxuan was still a single dog who was abused every day, the contrast was not ordinary. Su Yuxuan, who was unexpectedly urged to get married. Did he just shoot himself in the foot? If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have said anything QAQ. Fortunately, Qing Xiuqin just casually mentioned it and didn't dwell on this topic. After the family ate the cake, Su Yiyan and Qing Xiuqin took the little guy home. As soon as they got into the car, Su Yiyan couldn't help but ask curiously, what gift did you give Mom just now? You're being so secretive and not letting Mom open it in front of everyone? Could it be something shameful? Chapter 1082. Huo Chenhuan seemed to have expected Su Yiyan to ask this question, so he deliberately kept her in suspense. It's not something shameful. The reason why I didn't let mother-in-law open it is because I was worried that mother-in-law would refuse. Su Yiyan blinked. Borrowed flowers to present Buddha? Borrowed flowers from whom? Of course, it's from someone who tried to scheme against mother-in-law's family not long ago. Su Yiyan was startled and surprised. You mean, Do Tianyi? Yes. What flowers did you borrow from him? Huo Chenhuan didn't hide anything and said truthfully, I just gave mother-in-law the shares of Do Tianyi's company. The shares of Do Tianyi's company? Do Tianyi is seriously ill, and the Do group is divided internally, each doing their own thing. Some small shareholders saw that the situation wasn't good, so they secretly sold their scattered shares. Although it's just scattered shares, it's still a considerable amount. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Whether mother-in-law keeps it or sells it, it's a good investment. The most important thing is that mother-in-law should be able to vent her anger a little by getting these things. Su Yiyan roughly understood Huo Chenhuan's intentions after hearing his words. Do Tianyi bribed the internal employees of her uncle's company and urged Song Yunyuan to do some small tricks behind his back. Wasn't it the idea of taking advantage of the panic of the shareholders, the internal employees and even the board of directors, when they sold their shares at a low price to take advantage of the loopholes and effortlessly take over her uncle's company? Now his scheme failed and he was punished. He really deserved it. Do Tianyi is scheming and vengeful, but no matter how scheming he is, it's useless if he doesn't have a healthy body. Huo Chenhuan raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, Pity him? Su Yiyan shook his head. There must be something hateful about a pitiful person. I'm not a saint who would sympathize with a pervert who schemed against me and my family. Hua Qinhuan's complexion improved a little. She held Su Yiyan's slightly cold hand and comforted her. Don't worry. He won't have the chance to plot against you and your family again. Yes. Xiao Budian, who was in Su Yiyan's embrace, seemed to have noticed the strange atmosphere in the car. He suddenly raised his head and called out a few times, trying to attract the attention of the two people. Thanks to his interruption, the two of them stopped talking about Do Tianyi and lowered their heads to play with the little fellow. In the blink of an eye, the little guy was almost 1 year old. Su Yiyan wanted to hold a lively first birthday party for the child. She wanted to invite many relatives and friends to join in the fun. Hua Qinhuan had no objection to this. He wanted the whole world to know how happy he was. Su Yiyan wanted to invite a lot of people. Most of them were in the local area, except for the Cheng family. There was also Zheng Qianyang, who had left for a matter 1 or 2 months ago and had yet to return. Speaking of which, Uncle hasn't contacted us for a long time. Could it be? Hua Qinhuan heard Su Yiyan's words and paused for a moment. She immediately smiled and said, He rarely contacted me when he was abroad. It's okay. Su Yiyan frowned slightly. How is it the same? He was at least safe when he was abroad. This time he went to. Halfway through her words, Su Yiyan realized that compared to her, Hua Qinhuan was probably more worried about Zheng Qianyang's recent situation. It was just that he didn't say it out loud because he was worried that it would affect her. I hope that before the baby's first birthday, all these messy things can be settled. Uncle can also rush back to attend the baby's first birthday party. Hua Qinhuan glanced at Su Yiyan's hair. Her lips curved slightly and she softly replied, He will. Chapter 1083. As soon as Hua Qinhuan finished speaking, the little boy raised his hand and cried out happily, Awu mama? Yeah, the two adults were stunned. Hua Qinhuan reacted first. She couldn't help but reach out and pinch her son's chubby face. See, the baby thinks so too. The little boy seemed to have figured out something after his father pinched his face so many times. He was no longer as silly and obedient as before. As soon as Hua Qinhuan started to pinch his face, the smile on his face disappeared. He turned his head and plunged into Su Yiyan's arms as if he had been wronged. Seeing this, Su Yiyan gave Hua Qinhuan a warning glare and patted the little boy's back a few times. Baby, do you miss your granduncle too? When the baby is 1 year old, granduncle will come back to play with the baby, okay? The little boy had a good memory. He obviously had some impression of his granduncle, who had lived at home for a while and liked to play with him. Hearing Su Yiyan's words, he clapped his hands to show his support. Pull over. Okay. Let granduncle do it. Su Yiyan kissed the little boy. Then let's ask our little lucky star to bless granduncle to come back safely and celebrate your birthday with you. Otherwise the baby will have one less gift to receive. As soon as Su Yiyan said this, before Hua Qinhuan could say anything, Gu Xiaoyang, who was in the driver's seat, couldn't help laughing. If Mr. Jing knew that the young madam and the young master missed him so much only because of the gift he hadn't given them, how would he feel? Hua Qinhuan was also amused by his wife's magical thinking. She said, Granduncle likes the baby so much. He will definitely prepare a very, very big gift for the baby. Zheng Qianyang, who had been warned that he would have to spend a lot of money, was speechless. He was really my nephew. Just as the family was thinking about how to scam Zheng Qianyang when he came back, Hua Qinhuan's phone suddenly rang, breaking the silence in the car. Hua Qinhuan frowned and picked up the phone, but her face darkened after hearing what the person on the other end said. Su Yiyan saw the change in his expression and his heart jumped. What happened? Nothing. Hua Qinhuan hung up the phone. There's a small mistake in the company. It's not a big deal, just a little troublesome. I have to deal with it myself. Su Yiyan recalled Hua Qinhuan's reaction just now. She didn't think that such a small thing would make him change his expression so easily, but she didn't ask. Business is more important. Since you have something to do, go and do it first. We're fine. Let Xiaoyang send you to the company first. I'll take the little guy back in another car. No need. Yanbai is already on his way. I'll take his car to the company later. Xiaoyang will send you back. Okay. Su Yiyan saw that he had arranged everything, so she didn't argue anymore. It was obvious that the matter was really urgent. In less than a quarter of an hour, Zui Yanbai rushed over in his car. The two cars met at a fork in the road. Hua Qinhuan got out of the car and didn't forget to say, If there's nothing else, go home first. Don't stay outside for too long. Su Yiyan knew what he was worried about. She leaned over and kissed him. Okay, I'll wait for you at home with the baby. Okay. Huo Chenhuan kissed her back and turned to leave. Su Yiyan looked at his back. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt a little confused. She had a feeling that something big was going to happen. Chapter 1084. A woman's sixth sense was a particularly mysterious thing. After Huo Chenhuan left, Su Yiyan always felt inexplicably flustered. The little boy in her arms pulled at her several times, but could not get her attention until, warning, warning. A few cars behind the host's car at 2 o'clock are suspicious. There are traces of deliberate tracking, and this group of people may have. The system did not finish the last word. Instead, it made a long beeping sound. Obviously, it had been censored. What kind of words would be censored? In just 1 or 2 seconds, Su Yiyan had already guessed, and her heart skipped a beat. System, are you serious? There are people in the cars behind? System scan. It can't be wrong. When Su Yiyan got the confirmation, the first thing that came to her mind was the people that Jing Chenyang and Huo Chenhuan had tried so hard to catch. Back then, these people could be so cruel to Huo Chenhuan's parents and fake it as an accident. Now, they were targeting her and her child? At the thought of this, Su Yiyan subconsciously hugged the little boy in her arms. She instinctively picked up her phone and called Huo Chenhuan. If the people in the cars behind were really the people she thought they were, these people were much more terrifying than Dou Tianyi's bodyguards. She, Gu Xiaoyang, and a few accompanying bodyguards were no match for them. Not to mention that she was holding a child in her arms. What if? No, there was no what if. However, when it rains, it pours. Su Yiyan called Huo Chenhuan several times with trembling hands. It was either no answer or an inexplicable busy tone. This made Su Yiyan's uneasiness rise to the peak. Huo Chenhuan did not answer her call. This situation had never happened before. Did she not notice, or was she hindered by something? At the thought that something might have happened to Huo Chenhuan, Su Yiyan's scalp went numb. Before she could think further, there was a loud bang. The cars that had been following behind them suddenly crashed into their car from behind. Su Yiyan, who was sitting in the back seat, swayed. She subconsciously held the child in her arms tightly and almost fell forward. Damn it. Gu Xiaoyang had also noticed the strange situation behind him. The collision of the car made him even more certain that this group of people did not come with good intentions. After cursing in a low voice, he hurriedly turned his head to look at Su Yiyan and asked with concern, "Young madam, are you and young master hurt?" "I'm fine. How are you?" "I'm fine too. Sit tight and don't worry about anything. I will definitely send you and the young master home safely." Su Yiyan was stunned. She knew that Gu Xiaoyang was going to speed up and try to get rid of the cars behind them. She nodded quickly. Considering that those people had weapons in their hands, Su Yiyan nervously slid down a little with the child in her arms so that the back of the chair could temporarily block them from the sight of the people behind them. There was no doubt that she had foresight in her actions. As if they could see that Gu Xiaoyang wanted to get rid of them, the people in the cars suddenly became angry. They did not care that they were still not far from the downtown area and directly fired a few bullets at their car. Fortunately, Huo Chenhuan had always been concerned about the safety of the family. Several of the family's cars were bulletproof. The bullets from behind did not hurt Su Yiyan and the others. They did not even damage the car shell. Even so, the sound of the bullets hitting the car still hit the hearts of the two adults in the car. At this moment, the two of them clearly realized that the people chasing them were desperados who really wanted to kill them. Chapter 1085. Since she couldn't get through to Huo Chenhuan, Su Yiyan couldn't just sit there and wait for her death. Su Yiyan called the police as fast as she could and explained the situation at the scene in a stuttering manner. After that, she called her elder brother. Listening to the familiar voice on the other end of the phone and the gentle comfort of trying to stay calm, Su Yiyan's nose twitched and she almost cried. At this moment, there was another collision behind her that was even more violent than the previous one. Su Yiyan's phone slipped out of her hand and fell into the gap at the edge of the car. Su Yuxuan, who was already nervous on the other end of the phone, heard the sound and her face turned pale. She anxiously shouted Su Yiyan's name into the phone, but Su Yiyan couldn't hear her. Perhaps the car was tired of the chase, but this time the car behind them crashed very hard and the car almost lost its balance. Su Yiyan finally sat down with the child in her arms. Her head was buzzing. After calming down, her first reaction was to ask the system for help. System, other than those medicinal seeds and all kinds of medical skills, do you have any life-saving tools? Hurry up and exchange for one for me. The system, which had been constantly issuing warnings, paused for a few seconds when it heard Su Yiyan's request before replying heartlessly. No. What's the use of having you? The system, which was despised, expressed its grievance and tried to clear its name. The system isn't the kind of combat system that has a high combat value. The system even has classifications? Su Yiyan was actually grasping at straws. She had been with the system for 2 or 3 years, so how could she not know what was in the system? She only asked this because she wanted to be lucky. She thought that if the system really hid some secret life-saving weapon. Xiaoyang, how's the situation? Can you escape? Gu Xiaoyang didn't turn back. Instead, he stared at the cars that were getting closer and closer and the several trucks that looked similar to the ones behind them at the intersection not far away. He gritted his teeth and said, "Young madam, there are too many of them. We can only try our best to delay them. But as time goes on, I'm afraid." Su Yiyan's heart skipped a beat. He could roughly feel the severity of the situation. Compared to a few minutes ago, a few more cars joined the large group chasing after them. It was obvious that these people came prepared. It was only a matter of time before they were caught. Even before they were caught, it was very likely that they would be blocked by an ambush vehicle that would appear out of nowhere and become the turtle in a jar. As it turned out, their worries were not unfounded. After turning a corner and knocking away a small truck that was trying to stop them, their car finally drove off the main road. However, at the other 2 ends of this 3-way road, there was actually a group of cars guarding. It was obvious that they wanted to block them here. There was an ambush in front and pursuers behind. The slightest carelessness could cost them their lives. Gu Xiaoyang's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Su Yiyan's heart was pounding. At this critical moment, the system, which had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke up. "Drive to the right and don't look back." Right? Su Yiyan subconsciously looked at the cars on the right. Compared to the cars on the left, the cars on the right did look weaker and easier to break through. Although she didn't understand the system's intentions, all she could do now was to trust it. "Xiaoyang, drive to the right. Don't worry about anything else. If they dare to block us, run them over." Chapter 1086. Gu Xiaoyang was startled, but he did not question Su Yiyan's words. He turned the steering wheel, stepped on the gas pedal, and rushed in the direction that Su Yiyan had pointed out. The cars on the right side of the intersection also moved. They surrounded them and took the initiative to drive in their direction. Su Yiyan and Gu Xiaoyang's faces changed slightly, but they knew that they had no way out. They could only watch as the cars got closer and closer. When the cars were less than a meter away from them, Su Yiyan's heart was in his throat. However, what happened next was beyond everyone's expectations. The cars did not block Su Yiyan and the others' way. Instead, they brushed past them at the last moment and rushed toward the cars that had been chasing after Su Yiyan and the others. Gu Xiaoyang and Su Yiyan, who had thought that they were doomed, were dumbfounded by what they saw. Is this an ally? Maybe. Rather than an ally, Su Yiyan was more willing to believe that the scene in front of him was a dog-eat-dog situation caused by disagreements among the group of gangsters. Whether it was an ally or an internal conflict, it was not something that Su Yiyan should care about. The most important thing now was to leave this troublesome place and go to a safe place. Gu Xiaoyang obviously knew this. He looked back at the messy cars behind him, stepped on the gas pedal and rushed forward as fast as he could. After driving for about a kilometer and confirming that there were no cars following behind them, the two were relieved. But at this moment, the system's warning sounded again. Su Yiyan was slightly startled. He looked up subconsciously and his pupils shrank. "Be careful." Gu Xiaoyang was startled by Su Yiyan's shout. Then he saw a black truck suddenly rushing out from the corner. Gu Xiaoyang's face changed slightly, and he subconsciously steered the steering wheel to the side. Unfortunately, the road was only so big. No matter how fast one's reaction was, the space was limited. The truck still hit the driver's seat where Gu Xiaoyang was, and the car lost its balance in an instant. Su Yiyan didn't have time to think. She held the crying child in her arms. Fortunately, after the car was hit and spun around, it hit a railing on the side of the road and stopped. It didn't overturn. However, there was a big hole in the glass of the front of the car and the driver's seat. One could imagine how hard the collision was. Su Yiyan took a while to recover from the child's cries before she raised her head. She shook her dizzy head and checked the child in her arms with a pale face. After making sure that there were no external injuries on the child's body except for crying out of fear, she was relieved and turned to check on Gu Xiaoyang's condition. Because it was a head-on collision and the car lost its balance, Gu Xiaoyang subconsciously drove the car to the side where there was no one. Although the adult and the child in the back seat were affected, their injuries were far less serious than Gu Xiaoyang's in the front seat. Su Yiyan just went over and saw Gu Xiaoyang's miserable state with his eyes closed and his forehead bleeding. Her heart immediately thumped. Xiaoyang? Xiaoyang, wake up. Wake up. Su Yiyan freed one hand to check Gu Xiaoyang's breath and touched his chest. After making sure that his heart was still beating, she looked a little better. But she also knew very well that Gu Xiaoyang was seriously injured. Chapter 1087. Putting aside the internal injuries caused by the collision, the external injuries that were visible to the naked eye could cause him to bleed too much and go into shock or even die if they were not treated as soon as possible. Furthermore, the place they were in now was not safe. The car had begun to smoke after the collision. No one could tell when it would explode, so they had to leave as soon as possible. Su Yiyan's anxious shout did not wake Gu Xiaoyang up from his coma. Instead, it alerted the dangerous people outside who had been eyeing her covetously. A group of black-clothed men with weapons surrounded the car, not allowing any possibility for the people in the car to escape. The deformed car door was pried open with a click. A dazzling light shone in, causing Su Yiyan to squint subconsciously. Then she saw a man walk out from behind the group of men in black. He called her gently and politely, "Miss Su." "You are." Su Yiyan felt that this man was a little familiar, but she could not remember where she had seen him before. "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that our boss wants to see Miss Su. He hopes that Miss Su will do him the honor." The man's tone was gentle when he said the first half of his words. Then he changed the topic and his tone became a little colder. "Of course, if Miss Su is unwilling to go with us, we don't mind taking some tough measures given the special circumstances." This was clearly a blatant threat. Su Yiyan pursed her lips. She was a little disgusted by the man's wording and felt that this man's tone was a little familiar. Su Yiyan pondered for a moment. Then an idea flashed through her mind. She quickly remembered who this man's tone was similar to and finally remembered where she had seen this man. When Do Tianyi personally came to the door that day, this man was also there. Su Yiyan's eyes were slightly cold. She said coldly, "Your boss? Do Tianyi?" The man Liu didn't say yes or no. He just raised his hand and made an inviting gesture. "You'll know when you see our boss." Su Yiyan looked at him and then looked at the men in black standing outside. "I can let you go, but I have a condition." Liu was stunned for a moment, and even the decent but hypocritical smile on her face faded a little. "Miss Su doesn't seem to understand the situation she's in. Do you think you have the right to negotiate with us?" When Su Yiyan heard what he said, she calmed down instead. She chuckled and said, "It's precisely because I know my own situation that I said those words. Do Tianyi asked you to invite me because you want to bring me back alive, right? Tell me, if you bring a dead person back, will you also become a dead person and be buried with me? It's not easy for a person to live, but it's much easier to die." Liu's face turned white. She wanted to refute, but she was choked and couldn't say a word for a long time. The two of them confronted each other for a few seconds. In the end, Liu was the first to admit defeat. "Miss Su, what conditions do you have? If you want to ask for help or send the child away, I advise you to give up." When Su Yiyan heard him mention the child, her heart trembled. The last bit of luck she had disappeared without a trace. This group of people had chosen to make their move today. Other than knowing their itinerary and making it easier for them to leave her behind, she was afraid that the child was also one of their targets. If she wanted to go around this group of people and send the child to a safe place, it wouldn't be that easy. Chapter 1088. Thinking of this, Su Yiyan's eyes fell on Gu Xiaoyang, who was unconscious in the driver's seat. "Take him to the hospital." "What?" "I want you to take him to the hospital." Su Yiyan stared into Liu's eyes and said firmly, "Get someone to take him to the hospital. As long as he's safe, I'll go with you." "Well." Liu hesitated. However, Su Yiyan did not want to drag things out with them anymore. "We don't have much time left. Sir, you should make a decision as soon as possible. whether you agree to my small request or let us all die together. She didn't know when the pursuers would catch up with them, and Gu Xiaoyang's injury couldn't be delayed. The only thing she could do now was to bet that Dou Tianyi still needed her. Liu's expression suddenly changed. She gritted her teeth and said, "Okay, I promise you." "Young master." Yu Zian looked at the expressionless man not far away. His face was pale and he was anxious and at a loss. "How is Xiaoyang?" "The doctor said that he avoided the vital organs and his life is not in danger. It's just that he has a severe concussion and lost a lot of blood. He may need to rest for a while to recover." "Got it." As soon as Hu Chenhuan finished speaking, there was a rush of footsteps behind them. Zui Yanbai trotted over with a grave expression, holding a document in his hand. Behind him was an equally anxious man. "Uncle?" Hu Chenhuan was surprised to see him. "Why are you here?" "The matter over there has been settled, but a few escaped. I was worried that they would come to trouble you and Yan Yan, so I hurried back. I didn't expect to meet them on the road." As Zheng Qianyang spoke, he turned to look at Zui Yanbai and motioned for him to tell Hu Chenhuan what had happened. "Young master, from the surveillance cameras near young madam's accident and some witnesses nearby, we learned that you and young madam's car were targeted not long after entering the main road. This group of people followed young madam's car not long after you left. During this period they did a series of actions such as crashing into the car and forcing it to stop. They even opened fire." Hearing this, the expressions of everyone present changed. Fortunately, the car young madam was in was bulletproof, so she wasn't injured. However, this group of people seemed to have been prepared. They had arranged for many cars to ambush at the various streets. Witnesses said that around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Xiaoyang encountered another group of cars while driving to avoid the cars that were chasing them. The two groups of cars clashed, and young madam's car was able to escape. It's only from this point onwards that there are fewer people around, and there aren't any surveillance cameras. Zui Yanbai looked at Hu Chenhuan's increasingly ugly expression, paused, and continued. The nurse in charge of the reception said that the person who called them for help was a man. From their description, it shouldn't have been Xiaoyang who called the police himself. As soon as Zui Yanbai said this, everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. Since Gu Xiaoyang didn't call the police himself, and it was a man's voice, then this man was most likely one of the people who kidnapped Su Yiyan and the child. When they rushed over, Xiaoyang was placed in a relatively safe place by the side of the road. The wounds on his body had also been treated briefly to stop the bleeding. Otherwise, with Xiaoyang's injuries at that time, I'm afraid he wouldn't have been able to hold on until the ambulance arrived. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.